Chapter 129. My mother sighed. Isn't it too early for him to know about this? You two are really too much. You only have a few days left. Why can't you wait any longer? At this time my father glared at me. To be honest, Han Hao is a good kid. But his family status and background. I don't think he's good enough for you. I pursed my lips. Dad, feelings and status can't be measured together. I really like Han Hao and I'm willing to be with him. But I need time to heal the wounds Duanmu has inflicted on me. My mother stroked my hair. Li-er, do you still love Duanmu? I lowered my head and didn't say anything. My mother hugged me. Poor child, she said. This is the most heart-wrenching feeling. My father looked at me. How about this? I'll find some time to talk to Han Hao and see what he thinks. You rest well. Your mother and I will go back first. I haven't talked to my daughter enough. Why are you in such a hurry to go back? Besides, if we let her stay here now, when she's discharged from the hospital, will she have to go back to the Duanmu family? I don't expect them to treat our daughter well. What if she really hurts her body? What if she really hurts the child? What do you want me to do? My mother's eyes reddened again. I quickly reached out and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. My father looked at my mother very calmly. That won't happen. There are only a few days left. Just hold on a little longer. If we choose to force a divorce at this time, it will be very disadvantageous for the Red Minghui. My father turned to look at me. Li-er, he said. It's been hard on you. Just stay here for a few more days and everything will be fine. I looked at my father and smiled. I understand, Dad. After my mother said a few more words, my father pulled my mother out of the room. I was the only one left in the large room. I lay on the bed, the wound on my chest still aching. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned over and reached for the glass on the bedside table. But just as I was about to reach for it, a hand reached out and held the glass in front of me. I looked up. It was none other than Duanmu Quebec. I reached out and took the glass. He held my shoulder and propped up my pillow, making it easier for me to lean against the headboard. I took a sip of water and looked at Duanmu Quebec. Thank you, I said. Duanmu reached for a chair and sat on the bedside table. He didn't say anything but just stared at me. Duanmu looked at me with a gentle gaze. I was getting more and more confused about what he was thinking. Seeing that he didn't intend to speak, I had no choice but to break the awkward silence. I looked at Duanmu and asked, "Why did you come back?" Duanmu still didn't answer. He looked at my face, then shifted his gaze downwards. He stared at the spot on my chest where he'd hit me. I blushed instantly. I was too embarrassed to ask, so I turned my head away to avoid looking at him. Duanmu suddenly reached out and unbuttoned my shirt. My breasts were exposed in front of Duanmu Quebec. He stared at my breasts. I quickly covered them and glared at him. "What are you doing?" He didn't say anything. He stood up, grabbed my hand and moved my arm away. He continued to stare at my chest with great pleasure. I struggled with all my might, but he held my hand tightly. My face flushed red and I shouted at Duanmu. "What are you doing?" Duanmu looked at me and let go of my hand. I quickly buttoned up my shirt. I stared at Duanmu and he stared back at me. Duanmu pointed at my chest and said, "It hurts, doesn't it?" "It's bruised." I was stunned. Duanmu had unbuttoned my shirt to see where he'd hit me. "Calm down a little." Still clutching my chest, I said to Duanmu, "It's okay. It doesn't hurt anymore. The doctor said that I can be discharged in 2 days." I glanced at him and turned my head away. "It's one step closer to the date of your divorce. You won't be upset when you see me." Duanmu looked at me. He lowered his voice and said, "I suddenly made a decision. I don't want a divorce anymore. As long as I give up on the divorce before the deadline, you will still be my wife." Hearing Duanmu say that, I was shocked. I looked at Duanmu and asked, "You can't take back what you've said. Are you treating our relationship as a joke? When I didn't want to give up on you, you chose to give up on me. When I gave up on you, you came to pester me. What do you mean? I've told you before. I'm not a toy. Duan-mu-Ke stood up and supported himself on the edge of my bed. His face gradually came closer to mine. I stepped back and he came closer. When he was about to touch my face, Duan-mu-Ke reached out and held my chin. He looked at me and said, "Don't think that I don't want to divorce you because I have feelings for you. It's because I don't want you to be with Han Hao. Instead of wishing you happiness, I'd rather break you up." Hearing Duan-mu-Ke say that, I was angry. I reached out and slapped him, but I didn't use too much strength. Perhaps it was because my body was too weak. Duan-mu-Ke looked at me and sneered. He looked at me and said, "Cold glaze, I don't want anyone else to have what I can't have. I also won't let anyone else have what I don't want." I pushed Duan-mu-Ke, but because my body was too weak, my forehead started to sweat. My face was pale and I collapsed on the bed. Duan-mu-Ke saw that something was wrong with me, so he quickly put me down. He ran out of the room and shouted for the doctor. Not long after, the doctor came. It was the same doctor who had treated me at the beginning. She glared at me and gave me a simple checkup. Then she looked at me and said meaningfully, "Good, it's nothing serious." She turned and looked at Duan-mu-Ke, who was standing to the side, and said loudly, "The patient's body is too weak. She needs to rest. Don't do anything to agitate the patient. Give the patient enough time to rest." Then she glared at Duan-mu-Ke and left with the nurse. Duan-mu-Ke stood there and looked at me with a serious expression. It seemed that my sudden situation had frightened him. He stood to the side without saying a word. Although he looked calm, he was probably very conflicted inside. I looked at him standing there like a block of wood. I sighed and looked at him, saying, "You should go back. It's getting late and I'm tired. I want to rest for a while." Chapter 130. Duan-mu-Ke looked at me and nodded. "You should rest. It's okay to come home a few days later." Then he left. Looking at his back, I didn't know why I felt so sad. Duan-mu-Ke suddenly didn't want a divorce. Wasn't this the result I wanted? If he didn't want a divorce, would I still love him as before? But why did he suddenly appear in my life when I was ready to let go? Did he just want to torment me? Unconsciously, I fell asleep. I didn't know how long I had slept, but I smelled the fragrance of chicken soup. I sniffed it and it smelled real. It didn't feel like a dream. I opened my eyes and saw Han Hao sitting next to me. He was fiddling with 2 or 3 thermal lunchboxes on the table. I sat up on the bed, rubbed my eyes, and looked at him with a sleepy face. When Han Hao saw that I had woken up, he gently touched my face and kissed my forehead. He smiled and asked me, "You're awake. Did you sleep well? I saw that you were sleeping very soundly, so I didn't dare to disturb you." I rubbed my eyes and looked at Han Hao. "How long have you been here? Why didn't you wake me up?" Han Hao gently stroked my hair. "I've been here for a while, but you were sleeping," asked the doctor. "He said that you were very weak and needed to rest, so I didn't wake you up. Auntie sent someone to bring you pork rib soup. Auntie Xiao personally cooked chicken stewed with mushrooms for you. I also asked the housekeeper to prepare millet congee and some refreshing dishes for you. Look, there are so many delicious dishes. They will definitely make up for all the nutrients you've lost." I looked at Han Hao and smiled. "It's too much. I can't finish it all. Eat with me," I said softly. Han Hao turned his head to look at me. He leaned over and kissed my forehead. He looked at me and said, "Silly, not only do I want to eat with you, I also want to sleep with you. The hospital is such a scary place. I really don't feel safe leaving you alone. I will always be with you. I have already prepared a change of clothes and toiletries. I have already contacted Xinyao. Tomorrow, Xi and Su Rue will be in charge of bringing us food to ensure that we won't starve to death. I am prepared to stay by your side. I'm going to stay by your side." Looking at Han Hao's funny face, I laughed. This room isn't big. There's no place for you to sleep. I looked around the room. It was true that the emergency room was small. Although it was a single room, the conditions were still bad. Han Hao scooped a bowl of soup and handed it to me. He pointed at the sofa next to him. I'll just squeeze in there. I looked at the two-seater sofa and then looked at Han Hao's 183 meters height. I shook my head helplessly. It's too cramped. There's only so much space. Han Hao reached out and stroked my hair. Silly, I'm fine. Don't worry. As long as I can stay with you, I'll do anything. I'll even sleep on the floor. Han Hao looked at me with a bright smile. Looking at his smile, my mood improved a lot. Han Hao handed me another bowl of congee. Looking at me, he said, "Be good, eat more." I took the bowl Han Hao handed over and began to eat in big mouthfuls. The two of us chatted as we ate. Finally, we finished dinner. Han Hao was definitely a clean freak. He cleaned up the entire room. I sat by the bed and looked at his busy figure. I suddenly felt very happy. This was how two people lived their lives. After Han Hao finished cleaning the room, he looked at the time and saw that it was still early. He wanted to take me to the garden behind the hospital for a walk. At first I refused, but he insisted. I had to listen to him. Han Hao was afraid that I would be tired, so he borrowed a wheelchair from the nurse's station. He pushed me and took me to the park. When we arrived at a deserted place, Han Hao stopped. He sat on the stone bench across from me and adjusted my jacket. He was afraid that I would freeze. Han Hao stretched. He looked at me and said, "Shaoli, are you cold? Do you feel any discomfort?" I looked at Han Hao and shook my head. He suddenly thought of something. He looked at me and said, "Shaoli, I forgot to bring you some water. I'll go get it for you." Then Han Hao hurriedly ran to the hospital building. After I watched him enter the building, I could only patiently wait for him. After waiting for a while, a little girl came in front of me. She held a rose in her hand. She walked in front of me and said, "Excuse me, are you Shaoli Jie?" I looked at the cute little girl and smiled. "Yes, I am. Who are you?" The little girl handed the rose to me. She looked at me and said in a sweet voice, "Shaoli Jie, a handsome brother asked me to give this to you. Sister, take it. I'm leaving." The little girl put the roses in my hand and ran away. While I was puzzled, two more little girls ran over and said the same thing. They also put the roses in my hand. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth. When I was holding a big bouquet of roses in my arms and couldn't take any more, a spotlight shone on the lawn in front of me. I was stunned. Then, a figure slowly walked out of the shadows and into the spotlight. It was Han Hao. He had changed his clothes and was wearing a handsome suit. He stood in front of me with a serious expression. I stood up with the flowers in my hands. I didn't know what was going on. At this time, romantic music came from somewhere. Han Hao slowly walked towards me. The spotlight followed Han Hao's figure. Han Hao stopped in front of me and looked at me with a warm smile. Han Hao reached out and gently stroked my face. His eyes were full of affection. I looked into Han Hao's eyes and said, "What's going on?" "Just now, a few little girls came to give me flowers. They all said that you asked them to give it to me. What's going on?" Han Hao looked at me and smiled. He gently kissed me on the forehead. He looked at me and said, "Shaoli, maybe it's too early to say these things, but I can't wait any longer. I can't wait any longer, so I've decided to say it all today." Looking at Han Hao's serious face, I touched his face and said, "What's going on? Just tell me." Han Hao took out a box from his pocket and opened it. It was a diamond ring. He knelt on one knee and held the ring in front of me. He looked at me and said, "Shaoli, marry me." Chapter 131. I looked at Han Hao in shock. I didn't know if I should accept him or not. Han Hao saw my hesitation. Still kneeling on one knee, he looked at me and said, "Shaoli, I know it's still too early. I also know that you're still Duanmu K's wife, but I've fallen deeply in love with you. It's getting harder and harder for me to leave you. I know that if I propose to you now, you'll definitely have some misgivings. But please believe me, I'll definitely be by your side until the day you're truly willing to marry me." Han Hao looked at me with gentle eyes. Looking at him, I couldn't stop my tears from flowing. I looked at him and reached out to take the ring from his hand. Then I helped him up. I looked at Han Hao and said, "Thank you for loving me without holding back. I also feel your love for me. I can't promise you anything now, but I'll definitely be with you." I reached out to touch his face. "Silly," I said softly. "It must have cost a lot to make such a big scene." Han Hao's face instantly turned red. He smiled and looked at me. "No, after my friends heard about our relationship, they were very supportive. They said they wanted to help me plan a proposal. I originally wanted to refuse. I know you don't like these hypocritical things, but they insisted. I couldn't refuse. I didn't expect you to really accept." I looked at Han Hao with a smile and said, "Hypocritical? I think it's not bad." I reached out to Han Hao and looked at him. "Put it on for me." Han Hao was stunned. He took out the ring and put it on my finger. The size was just right. I looked at it carefully and asked, "How did you know what size I'm wearing? This is too perfect." Han Hao looked at me and said, "If I tell you, you can't hit me." Looking at his sincere expression, I smiled and nodded. Han Hao said softly, "When you were asleep, I took the ring you always wore. I asked the shop assistant to help me choose according to the size of the ring. There just happened to be a suitable one. I thought the design was pretty good, so I ordered it." Han Hao pursed his lips. "It definitely can't compare to the wedding ring Duanmu Ke gave you. You wouldn't dislike it, would you?" I looked at Han Hao and smiled. I threw myself into his arms and hugged his neck tightly. "No, I like it very much. You know me very well. You know what kind of ring I like. Most importantly, you gave it to me. How could I not like it?" Han Hao hugged me tightly. He stroked my hair and said, "Shaoli, I really feel very lucky to have met you. You're willing to be with me and accept me. You know, I was really afraid that you would reject me and push me aside. But now I'm relieved. You won't leave me. This is more worth it than anything else." I leaned into Han Hao's arms and listened to Han Hao's heartbeat. Felt at ease. The two of us stood on the lawn in each other's arms. The people around us gradually dispersed, leaving only the two of us. I suddenly felt that even the air was filled with the smell of happiness. Han Hao was worried that I would freeze, so he brought me back to the ward. He went to get water and wash up. I was bored in the ward watching TV. Just then my phone rang. I took it out and saw that it was Duanmu, Quebec. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello, what's up?" Duanmu K's voice came from the other end of the line. "How are you?" It seemed that he was worried about my health. I answered softly, "I'm fine. Feel much better. I'm going to rest soon." There was no sound from the other end of the line. I waited for a while, but there was no reply. I had no choice but to call out softly, "Duanmu Ke? Duanmu Ke, are you still there?" Not long after, Duanmu Ke sighed. Then he said, "I found the divorce agreement we signed back then." I suddenly remembered that Duanmu Ke and I had both signed the divorce agreement. There were 2 copies, one for him and one for me. Duanmu Ke continued, "My divorce agreement has already been torn." Hearing him say that, my head was filled with blood. How could he be so impulsive? I was about to open my mouth to ask when Duanmu Ke continued, "I asked my lawyer to draft a declaration. It's a declaration canceling the divorce. I've already signed it. When you come back from the hospital, remember to sign it." Hearing Duanmu Ke say that, my head was spinning. I tried to calm myself down and said, "Duanmu Ke, the divorce is a fact. It's too late for you to back out now. I will not sign this declaration. Naturally, it has no legal effect. So, you don't have to waste your time trying to remarry me to make it easier for you to torture me. I won't agree to it." Duanmu Ke was stunned for a while. Then he said to me, "It's not up to you. Even if you don't want to, I will find a way to make you sign it willingly. Hearing Duanmu-K's words, I felt very uneasy. I was afraid that Han Hao would suddenly barge in and overhear it. I lowered my voice and said to Duanmu-K, Duanmu-K, if you do anything to hurt my family or my friends, I won't let you go. I'm not as strong as you, but I will fight you to the end. Duanmu-K sneered and said, as long as you listen to me, I won't do anything out of line. I've told you before that you'd better not challenge my bottom line. Then Duanmu-K hung up the phone. Hearing the busy tone, I clenched my fists in anger. I hadn't expected him to be so unreasonable. At this moment, Han Hao walked in. He looked at my serious face and walked to my side. He touched my face and said, "What's wrong? Your face is red and your expression is so serious. Did something happen?" I didn't say anything and just shook my head. Han Hao looked at the phone in my hand and understood. He held me in his arms and whispered, "Did Duanmu-K call and say something to make you unhappy? Don't think about it. Your health is the most important thing. If you keep getting angry, you're already weak. You'll get angry." I lifted my head from Han Hao's arms and looked at him. Aside, I thought it would be better not to tell him that Duanmu-K wanted to remarry. He had just proposed to me. If something like this happened, he wouldn't be happy. I looked at Han Hao and said, "It's late. Let's rest. I'm tired." Han Hao saw that I had something on my mind that I didn't want to say. He nodded and said, "Whatever. Don't be angry. Your health is the most important thing right now." Chapter 132. I leaned against Han Hao's chest and felt at ease. Han Hao kissed me on the forehead. He laid me down and gently covered me with the blanket. He held my hand. I could see that he didn't look sleepy at all. He looked at me and said, "It's late. Go to sleep. Don't worry, I'll be here with you. Go to sleep." I nodded gently and closed my eyes. But I didn't fall asleep. I could feel that Han Hao had stayed by my side for a while. Then he left. I could feel that he walked over to the small sofa. I guessed that he was going to sleep there for the night. I turned around and opened my eyes to look at him. His sleeping posture was awkward, but I had to admit that Han Hao's sleeping face was very beautiful. I called out softly, "Han Hao, are you asleep?" Han Hao raised his head and looked at me. "I'm not asleep yet. What's wrong?" "Can't sleep." I looked at him and gently patted the bed. "Come here and sleep," I said. Hearing my words, Han Hao's face turned crimson. He lowered his head and said in a low voice, "I don't think so. The bed is only so big. If I disturb your rest, it won't be good if the nurse comes to check the room and sees it. It won't be good for you if the gossip spreads." I smiled and looked at him. "It's okay. In a single room like ours, the nurse will only come if there's no escort or if there's an SOS button. Besides, if the gossip spreads, then so be it. We're both above board. What are you afraid of?" Han Hao thought for a while and sat up on the sofa. He hugged the blanket and walked over to me. First, he covered me with the blanket. I moved to make room for Han Hao. Han Hao looked at me and smiled shyly. Then he crawled under the blanket. Before he could lie down, I hugged him from behind. Han Hao was stunned at first. He turned around and hugged me tightly. I leaned against Han Hao's chest and felt his scent. Han Hao's heart was beating very fast. It seemed that he was very nervous when he hugged me like this. Han Hao hugged me and said softly, "Shaoli, I can't sleep." I knew what Han Hao really meant. It seemed that he had a reaction. My face was a little hot too. I leaned into Han Hao's embrace and looked at him. "Why don't you stop hugging me? Your face is too red. Is it because you're not feeling well?" Han Hao's face turned even redder. He didn't dare to look at me. He whispered in my ear, "Shaoli, I'll tell you a secret. Don't laugh at me." I looked at him suspiciously and asked, "What secret?" "Don't worry. I'm very tight-lipped. Don't worry. What secret is it? Han Hao whispered in my ear. I've never touched a woman in my life. Will you laugh at me? When I heard Han Hao say that, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Han Hao looked at me and pouted. He said unhappily, "See, you're laughing at me. I'm so unhappy. If I'd known earlier, I wouldn't have said it. I don't know what to do now that you're laughing at me." I reached out and touched Han Hao's face. "No, I don't care about that. It's just that when I saw your cute expression, I couldn't help but laugh. I don't care about that. I won't laugh at you." Han Hao stroked my hair and said, "Shaoli, do you think that a boy like me has ruined a lot of little girls?" I shook my head and looked at Han Hao. "No, why would you ask that?" Han Hao sighed and said, "Actually, I don't know how it's defined now. 2 years ago, there was a period of time when the Black Nightmare Society was particularly busy, and I often worked overtime. I left early and returned late every day, so I didn't have much time to explain to my parents. In the end, one day I was called to the study as soon as I got home, and they asked me what I had been doing for the past few days. I said I was working overtime, and both of them looked like they didn't believe me. My father was more straightforward when he spoke. He asked me directly if I was in a relationship, and I said I wasn't. My father then told me that if I went out with a girl, I had to remember to take protective measures. At the time, I didn't understand why my father said that. Later, my friends around me experienced more, and I only understood after listening to them that he was referring to things between a man and a woman. I told them that I had never done it with a woman, but they didn't believe me and even laughed at me. Later, when I told my father, he also felt that it was particularly unbelievable, so I didn't understand whether someone like me would be considered a bad man who harmed girls. I stroked Han Hao's face and said, "Don't think too much. Maybe that's what other people say, but I don't think that way. You're a good boy and a responsible person. I'm thinking that there must be a lot of girls chasing after you. Course, there must be a lot of girls throwing themselves at you. You're still so innocent, so you must have your own principles, right?" Han Hao nodded and said, "You're right. Previously, there was a girl who colluded with 2 of my buddies to get me drunk and then force me to do something with her. When they helped me to the hotel, I was already sober, so that girl's idea didn't work out. After that, she even spread rumors that I had sex with her. At that time, she came to the Black Skeleton group to cause a ruckus and insisted that I take responsibility for her. Fortunately, Duan Muke took care of it for me. I heard that he gave her a sum of money and she stopped causing trouble." After hearing Han Hao mention Duan Muke's name, his expression immediately changed. He looked very disappointed. It seemed that I had affected the relationship between the 2 of them. I looked at Han Hao and said, "Don't think too much about it. It's all in the past. Actually, Duan Muke's temper is a bit strange, but other than that, he's fine. He's a person who values relationships and righteousness, but sometimes the things he does are a bit too extreme." Han Hao sighed and said, "When you first got married to little K, he didn't know you very well and was very resentful of this marriage. Later on, when he gradually began to like you, he would only say that you were good. Even when he was with us, when we originally agreed to go out and play together, he would refuse, saying that he wanted to accompany you. But since he lost his memory in the car accident, he has completely changed. If he used to have a bad temper, then he has become completely irritable now. Sometimes I feel that I don't even know him anymore. In the past, no matter how much we quarreled, we never hit each other, but now, forget it, let's not talk about it anymore." Looking at Han Hao's disappointed expression, I didn't know how to comfort him. Although the friendship from childhood could withstand the test of time because of the change in personality, the feelings would also change. Chapter 133. Han Hao saw that I was still thinking about random things. He gently kissed my forehead and said to me, "Shaoli, it's getting late. You should rest. You've been tossing and turning for a long time today. It's time for you to sleep. Otherwise, I'll be worried." I nodded and leaned into Han Hao's embrace, closing my eyes. Just like that, Han Hao and I hugged each other and slept through the night on the hospital bed. That night I slept very well. I felt like I'd made up for all the sleep I'd lost over the past few days. I didn't know how long I slept. When I woke up, the sun was already very high up in the sky. However, Han Hao wasn't by my side. I didn't know where he had gone. I sat up on the bed. The door to the ward opened and Han Hao walked in with 2 thermos containers in his hands. When he saw that I had woken up, he smiled and said, "Shaoli, you're awake. How did you sleep?" I smiled and looked at him. I slept very well. I looked at the thermos containers in his hands. "Don't you have Xinyao and Suri deliver every meal? How come you went to get the food?" Han Hao put the thermos containers on the bedside table. He looked at me and said, "They arrived a while ago. When they saw that you were still sleeping, they handed me the food. Then they went to see Suri's sister. They said they'd come back later." "Oh, so they came already. How long did I sleep?" I reached for the mouthwash on the bedside table and shook my head helplessly. Han Hao looked at me and smiled. "You slept very soundly, but in the second half of the night, you were sweating all over. I was afraid you wouldn't feel comfortable sleeping wet, so..." Han Hao's face turned red again. I tilted my head and looked at him. I didn't know why he was shy again. He didn't dare to look up at me. "So I helped you change your clothes," he said in a low voice. "But I promise, you'll be fine." I didn't mean to peek. I was really afraid that you wouldn't sleep well, so I helped you change your clothes. You won't blame me, right? I lowered my head and looked at my clothes. They really had been changed. My face turned a little red, but I didn't know what to say. I lowered my head and whispered, "It's okay. Thank you for taking care of me. You didn't sleep well, did you?" Han Hao sat on the edge of the bed and brought me a bowl of porridge. He looked at me and said, "I'm fine. I'm happy to see you get better. That's why you have to take good care of yourself." Han Hao scooped a spoonful of porridge and handed it to me. He gestured for me to drink it. I watched as he opened his mouth and drank the porridge. At this moment, the door to the ward was pushed open. Xinyao and Suri walked in and saw Han Hao feeding me the porridge. Xinyao hurriedly covered her eyes and walked into the ward. She didn't forget to say, "Oh my, you're showing off your love. My eyes are blinded. I didn't see anything." Seeing Xinyao's mischievous appearance, Han Hao put down the bowl and stood up. He looked at Xinyao and said, "You're back. How's your sister? How's she recovering?" Xinyao skipped to my bedside and sat down. She picked up the bowl of porridge and began to feed me mouthful by mouthful. Xinyao smiled and said, "Han Hao, Gij Suri's sister is really cute. She's recovering well. Ask the doctor. She can be discharged in a few days. At that time I'll bring her back to my house. I promised her that I'll play with her. By the way, sister-in-law, how are you? After a night's sleep, you look much better." I glanced at Suri. Suri ran to the bathroom and took out a mop. He began to clean the ward. Seeing Suri working so hard, I looked at Xinyao and said, "Girl, look at how hard-working Suri is. You've hit the jackpot." Xinyao turned to look at Suri. She pouted and looked at me. "It's just that he doesn't do much. He'll have to practice in the future." At this time, Surua looked at me with a smile and said, "Eldest miss, you don't need to scold her. After all, Xinyao is the little princess of the Duanmu family. Let me do the rough work. It's not particularly complicated." I looked at Suri. "Suri, you can't do that. You're spoiling her. You're spoiling her too much." Suri smiled and scratched his head. "Miss, don't joke around. I don't think it's bad. I'm quite willing to do it. It's fine for a man to do more." Han Hao stood to the side and said, "That's right. I think Suri's words are very reasonable. It's fine for a man to do more. It's all for the woman he loves." While we were talking and laughing, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," Xinyao shouted. The door to the ward was pushed open, and a man walked in with a briefcase in his hand. He entered and closed the door. Then he looked at us and said, "Excuse me, which one of you is Miss Cold Glaze?" So he was looking for me. I looked at him and said, "I am. What can I do for you?" The man glanced at me, then opened the briefcase and took out a few pieces of paper. He looked at me and said, "Hello, Miss Lung. I'm an employee of the Black Viper Group's legal department. I was asked by young Master Duanmu to bring this declaration of marriage. Young Master Duanmu has already signed it. Now we only need Miss Ling's signature. As long as you sign it, this document will take effect immediately. Your divorce agreement with young Master Duanmu will be terminated." What? Xinyao, Suri, and Han Hao were stunned when they heard this. I looked at the man and said seriously, "Didn't I already tell Duanmu K? I won't sign this agreement. You can go back. Don't worry about it." The man smiled and looked at me. "Miss Lung, as far as I know, you were opposed to the divorce with young Master Duanmu from the beginning. However, I don't know why you agreed to it later. Now that young Master Duanmu has chosen not to divorce, isn't that what you wanted? This agreement seems to be of great benefit to you. I don't need it. I've already made it very clear to Duanmu K that I won't agree to his unreasonable request. You can go back. I need to rest now." I turned my head and didn't look at him anymore. The man looked at me and said, "Miss Lang, young Master Duanmu told me to delay a message for you. If you don't want to sign this agreement, it will affect your loved ones. So, I hope Miss Lung will reconsider. If you really hurt the people around you, then the one who will be hurt will be Miss Ling, right?" "What do you mean?" Suri rushed in front of the man. He grabbed the man's collar and looked at him fiercely. The man struggled with all his might, trying to shake off Suri's hand. Chapter 134. What he means is what I mean. A voice came from outside the room. Then the door was pushed open and Duanmu K came in. I didn't know why, but when I saw him I felt a trace of hatred. The man shook off Suri's hand and retreated behind Duanmu Quebec. Duanmu K looked at me and said, "You look pretty good. Since that's the case, I won't talk nonsense with you. Since you look pretty good, sign this remarriage agreement." Duanmu K handed the agreement to me, but Han Hao rushed in front of me and blocked me behind him. He looked at Duanmu K, and the atmosphere in the room was tense. I looked at Duanmu K and said, "I told you I won't sign this agreement. Don't waste your time. You were the one who wanted to do all of this. I didn't even think about it." Duanmu K looked at me and said in a low voice, "I also told you that this isn't up to you. Yesterday was the first warning and today is the second. I won't give you a third chance. Let's go." Then Duanmu K left with the man. After Duanmu K left, Han Hao turned around and looked at me with a puzzled expression. "Shaoli, what's going on? Weren't you going to divorce? How come this remarriage agreement popped up? What's going on? Could it be that little K called you yesterday to talk about this? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" My tears flowed down. Seeing me cry, Xinyao pushed Han Hao away and hugged me. "Han Hao, Gidge, what are you doing? You made my sister-in-law cry. If you have something to ask, you should ask slowly. Why did you ask so many questions all of a sudden? My sister-in-law doesn't know how to answer." Han Hao was so angry that he couldn't speak. He sat to the side. I looked up at Han Hao and said in a low voice, "I thought I could solve this problem myself. I didn't expect him to come to my door so quickly. I'm not afraid, but I'm afraid he will hurt the people around me. I don't know who he will hurt and how I can protect them." Xinyao sighed and said, This matter, my brother is too self-centered. He's too fickle. Before, he insisted on getting a divorce. Now that he says he doesn't want a divorce, he won't divorce. It's really a joke." I looked at Han Hao. He was still sitting there, sulking. He didn't say a word. I looked at Xinyao and Suri. "You two go back. It's time to prepare lunch. I have something to talk to Han Hao about." Xinyao looked at me and reluctantly said, "Okay. Sister-in-law, rest well." She turned to Han Hao and said, Han Hao, Gidge, don't bully my sister-in-law anymore. She's very weak. If you have any problems, ask her nicely. Then the two of them left. Only Han Hao and I were left in the room. I looked at Han Hao and asked in a low voice, Han Hao, are you angry? Han Hao didn't speak. He just lowered his head and didn't say a word. I sighed and looked at Han Hao. I'm sorry. I didn't tell you about this at first. I thought I could solve it myself, but it seems I overestimated my abilities. I really didn't expect him to come and cause trouble today. It's all my fault. Don't be angry, okay? Han Hao raised his head and looked at me. His eyes were a little moist. He said in a low voice, Shaoli, I'm not angry because you didn't tell me about this. I'm angry because I couldn't do anything when you suffered so much. I suddenly feel so useless. I can't even protect the woman I love. Looking at Han Hao's sad face, I didn't feel good. I struggled to get up from the bed and walked over to Han Hao. When I reached his side, I gently hugged him. Han Hao leaned against my chest and I could feel his sadness. I patted Han Hao's shoulder and said in a low voice, Han Hao, don't be sad anymore. Seeing you like this makes me very uncomfortable. I know you love me, so don't think like this anymore. Don't be sad anymore. Han Hao raised his head and looked at me. He stood up and hugged me tightly in his arms. He said in a low voice, Shaoli, don't leave me. I'm really scared. I'm really scared that you'll leave me. I just held you in my arms. I don't want to lose you, and I don't want to leave you either. Shaoli, promise me don't leave me, okay? I hugged Han Hao and gently stroked his back. I said in a low voice, I won't leave you. I'll never leave you. Just like that, two lonely people could only give each other the truest warmth by leaning against each other. I suddenly felt that I only had Han Hao in my heart. I couldn't bear to see Han Hao so sad. I just wanted to do my best to protect him. I hoped that Duanmu K's first target wasn't Han Hao. In the afternoon, the doctor came to check the room with some examination reports. After the doctor looked at the medical records, he looked at me and said, Her body is recovering well. Normally she can be discharged tomorrow. Miss Lung, when do you want to be discharged? Before I could open my mouth, Han Hao said, Doctor, can we delay it for 2 days? Give her a full checkup. She's pregnant after all. What if these things affect the baby's development? The doctor's expression was obviously conflicted. He looked at Han Hao and said, Young Master Han, our emergency ward is also very tight. There are many patients who need to be admitted to the hospital. I hope that young Master Han can consider our hospital's situation. Han Hao said seriously, I won't shortchange you. It doesn't matter who stays in the hospital. Why do you have to shortchange my ward? I tugged on Han Hao's arm and said to the doctor, Doctor, that's all. I'll have to trouble you to arrange for me to be discharged tomorrow. Thank you. The doctor nodded and left. After the doctor left, Han Hao looked at me and said, Shaoli, why don't you stay for a few more days? What if Duanmu K forces you again when you go back? What if something happens to you again? I looked at Han Hao and smiled. He won't. I'll endure these few days. I won't let him have his way. Don't think too much. What I'm afraid of now is that if he really wants to take action, you might be the first one. I'm afraid that he'll hurt you. I'm not afraid of that. But whenever I think about him torturing you, I feel very uncomfortable. Why don't you just go back home and wait until the scheduled date? Han Hao looked at me and said worriedly. Chapter 135. It's okay. I have to go back to the Duanmu house. If something really happens, I can still control the Duanmu Quebec. At least now that he wants to remarry me. He won't do anything to me. He'll consider my feelings. I understood the Duanmu K's true intentions. Since he still thought that I was useful, he wouldn't torture me. Han Hao sighed and looked at me. Shaoli, what I'm afraid of is not what he'll do to me. For you, I'm willing to fight against him. What I'm most afraid of is that he'll hurt you. I can't stay at the Duanmu house for a long time. If I stay for a long time, the Duanmu house will suspect me. That's why I have a headache. I don't know what to do. What can I do to protect you? I reached out and gently stroked Han Hao's face. It's okay. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. If I really can't handle it, I'll come find you, okay? Han Hao held my hand. You don't have to handle it. If you need me, I'll immediately appear in front of you. Han Hao hugged me, his expression sad. It was true. If the two of us wanted to be together, we would have to go through a lot of difficulties. The next day, I went through the discharge procedures. Han Hao woke up early and helped me pack my luggage. When everything was ready, he left. Duanmu K was coming to pick me up today. He didn't want to see Han Hao. When Xinyao and Suri arrived, he said a few words and left. Looking at Han Hao's departing figure, I silently swore in my heart that I would definitely be together with Han Hao. No matter what happened, I would be with him. Suri and Xinyao chatted with me for a while before Duanmu K arrived. When he saw that we were almost done packing, he looked at me and said, "You're all done. Let's go." He picked up a luggage bag and walked out of the room. His attitude was still as cold as before. Xinyao supported me, and Suri carried a pile of things. We left the room and the hospital. When we returned to the Duanmu house, Duanmu Tachio and Xiao Fengya were already waiting for us in the living room. As soon as we entered the living room, Xiao Fengya greeted us. She took my hand and said, "Xiaoli, you're back. It's been hard for you. You've lost weight." Duanmu Tachio also walked forward. He looked at me and said, "Xiaoli, it's good that you're back. Go upstairs and rest. Don't walk around. Arrange for the nanny to bring lunch and dinner upstairs." "That's right," Xiao Fengya said. "I'll take care of this. You don't need to worry. K. Hurry and take Xiaoli upstairs to rest." Duanmu K nodded. He helped me up the stairs, but Xinyao stopped him. Xinyao stood in front of Duanmu Quebec. "Brother, I'm telling you in a very serious manner," she said. "Please don't hurt my sister-in-law again. If you don't treat her nicely, I'll really turn against you. This time I'm serious. Brother, please don't challenge my bottom line." Duanmu K looked at Xinyao and said, "I know what I should do." Then Duanmu K pulled me past Xinyao and into the bedroom. After entering the bedroom, Duanmu K put the luggage on the chair. He glanced at me, opened the wardrobe, took out a set of pajamas and threw it on the bed. Then he looked at me and said, "Change into this and rest well. The nanny will bring lunch and dinner to you. I have a meeting at work, so I have to go." Duanmu K walked to the door. He stopped and turned to look at me. "Don't even think about running away. It's useless. I've placed the remarriage agreement on the dressing table. You'd better sign it as soon as possible." I stood by the bed and looked at him. "I've already said that I won't sign it. Don't waste your breath. Once I've decided on something, I won't change it." Duanmu K smiled coldly. He looked at me and said, "I'm not afraid to tell you that if you don't sign it, the first person I'll lay my hands on will be Han Hao. Since you love him so much and want to be with him, I won't let the two of you get happiness so easily. Course, I'm not jealous. I hate you." Duanmu K looked at my increasingly frightened expression. He smiled again and looked at me. "I'm going to work now. Think about it carefully." Then Duanmu K left the bedroom. After Duanmu K left, I trembled with anger. He was as stubborn as ever. There were only 7 days left until the date of the divorce. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't know what to do. Forget it. I'd better take a good rest and think about it later. I changed into my pajamas and got into bed. There was a knock on the bedroom door. "Come in," I said softly. The bedroom door opened. The person who came in was Yuexin. She entered and closed the door behind her. She looked at me and said, "You look good. Uncle and Auntie were so worried. You're fine, aren't you?" I looked at Yuexin and said, "It's nothing. The parents are worried. Naturally, they'll be very concerned about me." Yuexin leaned against the door. She looked at me and said, "You're leaving in 7 days. What do you think? Don't you feel a bit sad?" I looked at Yuexin. Obviously, she didn't know that Duan Muke had suddenly changed his mind and wanted to remarry her. However, looking at Yuexin's proud expression, I felt the need to provoke her. I looked at Yuexin and sneered. "It seems that you have no idea what Duan Muke is planning right now." Yuexin's face suddenly became very ugly. She looked at me and said, "What is it?" I smiled and said, "It seems that Duan Muke doesn't treat you as one of his own. He didn't even tell you this. You still haven't changed your bad habit of thinking too much." Yuexin took 2 steps towards me. She looked at me and said very seriously, "Hurry up and tell me. What is it?" I looked at Yuexin and said, "Duan Muke asked the legal department to draft a remarriage agreement. He doesn't want to get a divorce anymore. But don't worry, the one who doesn't want a divorce is me, not him. I've already decided that no matter what, I won't sign this remarriage agreement. Isn't this fulfilling your wish?" Yuexin's face became even uglier. She looked at me and said, "What? Duanmu? Gij wants to remarry you. So what if you want a divorce? Can you win against Duanmu, Gij? Don't you know what kind of strength you have?" I smiled and looked at Yuexin. "I don't have as much power as Duanmu Quebec. I also know that it's impossible for me to not sign this agreement. I also don't have the ability to fight against him. But I still want to take a gamble and do my best to protect the people around me. No matter what, as long as you get a divorce, it'll be good for you." Chapter 136. So what you're saying is, you're thinking for me? When did you become so kind? I've harmed you before, aren't you afraid that I'll harm you again? Yuexin looked at me, still worried. I looked at Yuexin and said, "You have indeed harmed me and caused me to lose my child. I won't forget this hatred for the rest of my life. But now that I'm in this situation, I want to work with you temporarily. As long as you help me get a divorce with the Duan Muke, I won't appear between you and the Duan Muke anymore. After that, you and I will have nothing to do with each other." Yuexin thought for a moment, then looked at me and said, "What you're saying is indeed very beneficial to me, but why should I believe you? What if you're deliberately saying this to trick me?" I looked at Yuexin and said, "My heart already belongs to someone else. I accepted Han Hao's proposal and decided to be with him. Right now, I really don't have any feelings for the Duanmu Quebec. You don't need to worry about that. Besides, when the Duanmu K tortured me, you saw it with your own eyes. If you were the one being tortured, would you still love such a person?" I tried to think of a way to convince Yuexin. Yuexin thought for a moment, then said to me, "Then how do you want me to cooperate with you?" I looked at Yuexin and said, "Don't you like the Duanmu K? Now you can reveal your true feelings to him. Besides, you can continue to use the methods you used on him before." I thought back to the time when Yuexin had schemed to climb into the Duanmu K's bed. My heart was still filled with hatred. But right now, my main goal was to get the Duanmu K to agree to the divorce. Yuexin also had the same goal, so I believed that she would agree. Yuexin looked at me and said, "All right, I promise you. I hope you can keep your word. I hate people who go back on their words the most." After saying that, Yuexin left the room. After Yuexin left, I lay on the bed and thought about it carefully. I didn't know if my decision was right or wrong. In fact, I was conflicted in my heart. To be honest, I still had feelings for Duanmu K, but I couldn't stand the torture he gave me. In fact, I knew that divorce was the best way for Duanmu K, for me, and for everyone else. I looked at the agreement on the dressing table with a complicated feeling. I wouldn't sign it. This time I had to fight against Duanmu K to the end. I slept for a whole day. Because my body was still weak, and perhaps because of the baby in my belly, I didn't have any appetite. I didn't eat much of the food the nanny brought me. The weather wasn't very good today, so I didn't want to go out. I could only lie on the bed and endure the torment in my heart. After dinner time, I casually found a book to read. Not long after, the bedroom door was pushed open, and Dwan Mu K walked into the bedroom. The two of us looked at each other, and I continued to read while he walked into the bathroom to take a shower. It was good that we didn't talk. I didn't want to make him unhappy, and I was also afraid that he would talk and make me unhappy. Not long after, Dwan Mu K finished his shower and walked out of the bathroom. He stood at the door with his upper body naked. While wiping the water droplets off his body, he looked at me and said, "You didn't go out all day?" I looked at Dwan Mu K and said, "No, I didn't feel well. I didn't want to go out. The weather was bad, so I was too lazy to move." Dwan Mu K walked in front of the dressing table and saw the untouched agreement. He looked at me through the mirror and said, "You still haven't signed it, right?" I put down the book and looked at Dwan Mu Quebec. "I haven't signed it. You're stubborn and I'm stubborn too. If I don't want to do something, it's useless for you to force me. You'll definitely say that if you don't sign it, I'll start with the people you love the most. I can only say that although your influence is strong, the Red Ming Hui isn't for nothing. Although my influence is in America, I'll still do my best to fight against you. You don't have to waste your time." Dwan Mu K turned around and looked at me. "You said what I wanted to say." Dwan Mu K's eyes suddenly became very gentle. He looked at me and said, "Do you really want to divorce me that much?" I looked at Dwan Mu K and my heart suddenly became very sad. I looked at him and said, "I really miss the time when we were together. I don't know if you've seen the video of us getting married. It was like acting. There was no emotion to speak of. After that, the two of us gradually fell in love with each other. Our words and actions revealed a perfect tacit understanding. Unfortunately, we didn't even have a picture of us at that time, only memories. I've never regretted falling in love with you. I also know that the things you did to me were out of your own will, not out of your own heart. If you still had a trace of feelings for me, you wouldn't have done this to me because you love me. But now you don't love me anymore. There's no point in us forcing each other to be together." It was rare that Dwan Mu K and I could talk about things so calmly without quarrels. Dwan Mu K looked at me and said with a smile, "In my eyes, you're completely different from the other women I know. The women I know are all submissive when they see me. They'll do whatever I want and will never go against me. Previously, there was a woman who deliberately got close to me. When she was by my side, she didn't hold back her words. No matter what happened around me, she would always butt in. When I couldn't stand her anymore, she actually plotted to frame me. After I saw through her, do you know what I did to her? What did I do to her?" I looked at Dwan Mu Quebec, hearing him say that. It couldn't be anything good. Dwan Mu K looked at me and said, "I stripped her naked and put her on the dock." Coincidentally, there was a group of workers working overtime to unload goods. This naked woman appeared in front of a pack of hungry wolves. Guess what happened? Hearing Dwan Mu K say that, I tightly clenched my fists. I looked at him and said, "Dwan Mu K, you're really bad to the bone." Dwan Mu K sneered. He looked at me and said, "I'm a very serious person. Of course I will give the people around me a chance. You only get one chance, but you can't go too far. Have principles. Since I'm given a chance, it's best to seize it. Relatively speaking, I'm a very humane person." Dwan Mu K's words seemed to be meant for me to hear. He probably meant for me to seize the chance he'd given me. I looked at Dwan Mu K and said, "Pointing at the mulberry tree and cursing the locust tree isn't your style. You don't need to be so careful with your words. If you have something to say, just say it." Chapter 137. Dwan Mu K walked to the side of the bed and climbed onto it, pressing down on my front. He reached out and lifted my chin, looking at me as he said, "I've already given you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Now you've already begun to cross my bottom line. I'm now considering whether to let you go. Just like you said, I once loved you and you're also my woman. If I treat you badly, the outside world will say that I'm a wife abuser. And it won't be good for the Black Nightmare Society's image either. If I don't let you go, I'll feel unhappy in my heart. I looked at Duanmu Quebec. His eyes were full of provocation. It was as if he wanted to torture me, but at the same time, he didn't want to torture me. I looked at Duanmu K and said, I'm not crossing your bottom line, and I'm not cherishing the chance you gave me. I just want to tell you that I won't live a life of being manipulated by others. I won't sign the divorce papers. I'm going to divorce. I stared at Duanmu Quebec. He was stunned at first, and then his expression became serious. Duanmu K let go of his hand and slid it down my neck. He stared at me and reached out to unbutton my shirt. He undid all the buttons and took off my shirt. My upper body was naked in front of him except for my underwear. Duanmu K looked at me, his hands caressing my body wantonly. He looked very proud, as if he wanted to see me naked. Duanmu K looked at me and said, Tell me, if I sent you to the dock and tortured you like that, would you obediently sign the divorce papers? Duanmu K reached out and unbuttoned my underwear. Just like that, I was naked in front of him. I looked at Duanmu K, but I didn't struggle or resist. I just let him touch me. Although I was very resistant, I just sat in front of him calmly. Duanmu K looked up at me and said, Aren't you afraid? I looked at Duanmu K and said, No. If you do this to me, the one whose reputation will be damaged will be the Duanmu family, not just me. Of course, I won't let you torture me with such cruel methods. Don't worry. If you really do this, I will kill myself. When that happens, the Duanmu family will have one more crime. You're a vicious woman. Duanmu K stopped and looked at me. His eyes revealed a ferocious look. I sneered and said, Let's break up. I like mom and dad, I like Xinyao, I like the old you. But to me now, this place hurts me. Although I miss it, I don't want to hurt myself anymore. So let's break up peacefully. I looked at Duanmu Quebec. My heart was not calm. I hoped he would make this choice. Duanmu K's hand left my body. He helped me tidy up my clothes and button them one by one. He looked at me and said, I'll think about it. Duanmu K pressed me down on the bed. He lifted my chin and suddenly kissed me on the lips. I reached out and pushed him away with all my might. He grabbed my hand and I couldn't resist. He looked up at me and said, You really are an extraordinary woman. I'm getting more and more curious about you. I used all my strength to push Duanmu K off the bed. I struggled to climb up and looked at him fiercely. Duanmu K, don't bother. Please respect what you said just now and carefully consider the matter of divorce. There are still 6 days left. I hope you don't regret it. Duanmu K looked up. He glanced at me and then left the room. After Duanmu K left, I gasped for breath. I didn't know if my words would provoke him and cause him to do something extreme. I suddenly felt worried and uneasy. I hesitated for a moment and then got up from the bed. I put on my jacket and walked out of the bedroom to the living room. When I arrived at the living room, everyone was chatting on the sofa. Xiao Fengya saw me coming downstairs and hurried over to me. She held my arm and said, Xiaoli, why did you come down? I saw that you haven't left the room all day. It's good to take a walk. Are you hungry? The nanny told me that you haven't eaten much. Are you starving? I looked at Xiao Fengya and smiled. I shook my head and said, Mom, I'm not hungry. Slept well. I don't have much of an appetite. Xiao Fengya looked at me and said, Okay then. If you need anything, remember to tell me. I'll ask the nanny to cook something delicious for you. I looked around and saw that Suri was there. I glanced at him and then at Xiao Fengya. Mom, there's something I want to talk to Suri about outside. Xiao Fengya looked at me and said, Okay. Put on your clothes first. She turned to Suri and said, Suri, if Xiaoli doesn't feel well, hurry and bring her back. Don't let her stay outside for too long. Suri nodded and then followed me out of the room. Suri and I walked to the garden. I came to the place where the rose pond used to be. There was nothing there now, but the rattan chair was still there. I sat on the rattan chair and looked at the empty space. Suri saw my disappointed expression and stood next to me. Young mistress, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well? I sighed and looked at Suri. No, I said. It's just that seeing this desolate place makes me feel very uncomfortable. Suri patted my shoulder and said, Young mistress, don't be sad. In a few days everything will be over. Today I saw Duanmu-K's expression. It doesn't seem to be as fierce as it was when I first met him. It looks like things will be resolved smoothly. I shook my head and looked at Suri. For now, I've managed to calm his violent nature. But I'm afraid that he'll suddenly do something unexpected. If I can't control him, then the ones who will be hurt will be you. That's not something I want to see. I'm so scared. Young mistress, don't worry. I won't leave you. No matter what happens, I'll stand by your side. I'll do my best to protect you. This isn't just my wish. It's also Xinyao's wish. Both Xinyaо and I will stand by your side. Suri looked at me, his expression resolute. I sighed and looked at Suri. Chapter 138. I glanced around Duanmu's house. I don't know why, but every time I return to this house, I don't feel as sad as before. Feel very calm now. When I talked to Duanmu-K this time, I felt that he had calmed down too. He said that he would think about it. That's a good start. Suri looked at me. Miss, I have a question to ask you, but I'm afraid that you'll be angry. I don't know if I can ask. I looked up at Suri. What's the question? Just ask. I won't lose my temper. Just say it. Suri paused. He looked at me and said, Miss, between Duanmu-K and Han Hao, who do you love? I looked at Su Rui and sighed. You're not afraid that I'll be angry with this question. You're afraid that I won't know how to answer it. This is indeed a very difficult question. If I say that I love both of you, will you think that I'm a fickle woman? Su Rui sighed and said. Suri looked at me. I already guessed it. The way you look at Duanmu-K is the same as the way you look at Han Hao. But from an outsider's point of view, you should love Duanmu-K more. Hearing Suri's words, I was shocked. I looked at him suspiciously. How can you be sure that I love Duanmu-K more than I love Han Hao? Suri sat on the edge of the abandoned rose pond. He looked at me and said, Your love for Duanmu-K comes from your heart. But your love for Han Hao is more of gratitude. You're grateful that he took care of you when you were at your weakest. When you needed care the most, he took care of you. Your gratitude for his love is greater than your sincerity. Listening to Su Rui's words, they did make sense. I really didn't know how to resolve the feelings between the two of us. I looked at Su Rui and smiled. Okay, I understand. Let's go back. If we stay out for too long, everyone will misunderstand. B. Suri walked over and helped me stand up. We walked towards the door. As soon as we walked out of the garden, we saw Yuexin holding Duanmu-K's arm as they walked out of the living room. Coincidentally, we bumped into each other and stopped in unison. Duanmu-K stopped and looked at Suri, who was supporting me. His expression was very serious, and he looked at me without saying a word. Yuexin looked at me, and she immediately understood what I meant. She held onto Duanmu-K's arm and said sweetly, Brother Duanmu, let's go. We don't have much time. The sisters are waiting for us. Duanmu-K glanced at Yuexin and said softly, Okay, I got it. Duanmu-K turned to look at me. His eyes were still very calm. He walked past me and left without saying a word. When we returned to the living room, I said goodbye and went upstairs to the bedroom. The divorce wasn't up to me. It was up to Duanmu Quebec. As soon as I lay down, I received a message from Yuexin. It said, Brother Duanmu won't be coming back tonight. You don't have to wait for him. It seemed that Yuexin had succeeded. I didn't know if what she had done was right or wrong. When I thought about the person I loved and the person I hated being so lovey-dovey with each other, I felt very uncomfortable. However, for the sake of my ultimate goal, I endured it all. I didn't sleep well that night. I remembered having a very long dream. I dreamt that Han Hao and I were happily taking a stroll in a garden. Not far away we saw Douanmu, Quebec. He stood there and saw Han Hao and I happy together. Suddenly he went berserk. He took out a knife from his chest and tried to stab me. To protect me, Han Hao blocked in front of me. Douanmu K's knife pierced deeply into Han Hao's chest. Han Hao's blood flowed out and dyed the entire garden red. Han Hao lay in my arms. I cried until my voice was hoarse, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wake him up. When I woke up again, it was already the next day. Douanmu K didn't come back. I stretched out my hand and touched the empty bed. I didn't feel good about it. I simply tidied myself up. I had made a big decision today. I wanted to rearrange the abandoned roses. It would be the last good memory I had left in Douanmu K's house. As soon as I walked out of the bedroom, I turned my head and saw that Yu Xian's bedroom door was wide open. She usually closed her door. I didn't know what happened to her today, but she actually opened it. It was really rare. I thought about it and walked towards her door. I wanted to ask her how things went yesterday. When I arrived at Yu Xian's bedroom door, I saw a scene that shocked me. Yu Xian was wearing very sexy pajamas as she sat in front of the dressing table and was putting on makeup. Douanmu K was lying on the bed in the room. Although he was covered with a blanket, she could see that his upper body was naked. As for whether he was wearing anything below, she did not know. I stood dumbly in front of Yu Xian's bedroom door. My mood was very complicated. This was indeed the result I wanted, but why did my heart feel like it was being torn apart when I saw this scene? Yu Xian glanced around and happened to see me. First she was stunned. Then she turned her head and looked at Douanmu K, who was still sleeping soundly. She stood up and walked towards me. She stopped in front of me and said in a low voice, "Shoo, don't wake him up." Hearing Yu Xian's words, I could only pretend to be calm. I looked at her and said, "It seems you've done your job. Congratulations." At this moment, Douanmu K stretched and sat up on the bed. Yu Xian looked at me and said in a low voice, "Quick, give me a push." I didn't understand what Yu Xian meant. She gave Douanmu K a look and I understood. She wanted to put on a show for Douanmu, Quebec. I reached out and pushed Yu Xian's shoulder. Although I didn't use much strength, Yu Xian pretended to take 2 steps back and fell to the ground. As we expected, Douanmu K immediately woke up. He clearly saw me push Yu Xian. He jumped up from the bed and quickly ran to Yu Xian's side to help her up. Douanmu K waited for me to say, "What are you doing?" I looked at Douanmu Quebec. Yu Xian gave me a look. I understood what she meant. I looked at Douanmu K and said, "You said I moved fast, but you moved fast too. You slept with Yu Xian so quickly. Very good. Since you already have someone next, don't pretend to be sincere and talk about getting married again. I've had enough of your one-sided behavior." Yu Xian lay in Douanmu K's arms. She pretended to rub her eyes and said in a low voice, "Douanmu, Gidge, what's going on? Yesterday you wanted to stay at my place. How did I become your next house? It's not like that." Chapter 139. Douanmu K looked at Yu Xian and comforted her. "Don't cry. Are you all right?" Looking at how Douanmu K was taking care of Yu Xian, I stood at the door and sneered. I looked at Douanmu K and said, "I remember you once told me that you were a cold and cruel person. But I didn't expect that it wasn't that you weren't gentle. It was just that you weren't gentle to me. Aren't you being nice to Yu Xian? You're a man who doesn't mean what he says." Douanmu K carried Yu Xian and put her on the bed. Yu Xian was still crying and tightly clutching Douanmu K's arm. After Douanmu K settled Yu Xian down, he walked towards me. He pulled my arm and pulled me out of Yu Xian's room. We walked to the corridor on the 2nd floor. I shook off Douanmu K's hand and glared at Douanmu Quebec. "Did I say something wrong? You're the one who did something wrong. Why are you acting like I'm the one who did something wrong?" Douanmu K looked at me and said softly, "Keep your voice down. Is it appropriate to let everyone know about this? Do you want my reputation to be tarnished? Or do you want us both to be taught a lesson? Only then will you be happy. I looked at Dwanmu K and sneered. That's enough. You once said that before we got divorced, we were still husband and wife. But what did you do? Han Hao only proposed to me and took care of me. He only stayed by my side and showed me his attitude. But what about you? What did you do? You slept with Uxin. What else do you want me to say? Don't think about the divorce anymore. I've made up my mind. We have to get divorced. Dwanmu K walked in front of me. He glared at me and said, Cold glaze, don't go too far. I'm talking to you calmly. You'd better not go too far. I looked at Dwanmu K and said, I'm going too far? I'm going too far. Dwanmu K, you've said everything good and bad. You're really talented. I really didn't expect you to be such a person. I didn't give Dwanmu K a way out. Even though I knew Dwanmu K would probably flip out, I still had to say those words. Dwanmu K reached out and lifted my cheek. I reached out and grabbed his arm, struggling with all my strength. Dwanmu K shouted at me. I told you, don't go too far. Dwanmu K swung his arm and slapped me across the face. The sound of the slap attracted everyone in the house. I fell and sat down in the hallway. Dwanmu K stood in front of me. He probably didn't expect that he would lose control of himself. Xiao Fengya and Dwanmu Tachio came upstairs. As they walked, Xiao Fengya said, What's going on? It's so noisy this early in the morning. Xiao Fengya saw me lying on the floor, covering my face and glaring fiercely at Dwanmu Quebec. She immediately understood. She hurried to my side and helped me up. She looked at Dwanmu K and said, K, what's wrong with you? Because he had just come out of Uxion's bedroom. His upper body was still bare. Uxion also came out of her own bedroom. She leaned against the door and pretended to look at us pitifully. Dwanmu K looked at Xiao Fengya and said, Mom, it's nothing. You and Dad should go downstairs and eat. Xiao Fengya's sharp eyes saw Uxin lying at the door with her clothes disheveled. Then she looked at Dwanmu Quebec. She immediately understood what was going on. Her expression became very serious. She walked in front of Uxin and asked, Xin, what's going on? Uxin looked at Dwanmu Quebec. Xiao Fengya said seriously, Hurry up and tell me. What's going on? Uxin looked at Xiao Fengya and said softly, Auntie, nothing. Nothing happened. Xiao Fengya saw Uxion's flickering eyes. She grabbed Uxion's shoulder and said sternly, Hurry up and tell me. What's going on? Uxion trembled in fear. She looked at Xiao Fengya and said, Yesterday Dwanmu Gij and I went to a nightclub to play. Dwanmu Gij drank a lot. When we came back, I wanted to send him back to his bedroom, but Dwanmu Gij didn't want to. He insisted on going to my room. I couldn't refuse, so I brought Dwanmu Gij to my room. Then Dwanmu Gij hugged me in his arms and said he loved me, and then Uxin blushed and lowered her head. Uxion's words were heard by everyone present. When Dwanmu Tachio heard it, he slapped Dwanmu K in the face. Dwanmu K was stunned for a moment. Then he turned to look at Dwanmu Tachio and said, Dad, I can bear the consequences of my own actions. Why did you have to hit me? Dwanmu Tachio pointed at Dwanmu K and said, You really made me lose face. You really made the Kurosawa lose face. The great young master of the Dwanmu family is actually a scumbag who cheats on his wife and beats her. You really disappoint me. I walked in front of Dwanmu Tachio and looked at him as I said, Dad, don't be angry. It's not good for your health if you get angry. I've already decided to divorce Dwanmu Quebec. It's only right for him to find another family for himself. His mistake was that he shouldn't have had a relationship with Uxion while they were still married. No matter what, the divorce is in 5 days. If it really doesn't work, then we can just bring it forward. I don't know how to stay in this family anymore. Xiao Fengya turned around and looked at me. She walked in front of me and held my hand as she softly said, Xiaoli, Xiao K really went too far. Can you give him a chance? You know that your dad and I don't approve of your divorce. I also know that no one can accept this kind of thing. No matter what, I hope you can endure it for a while, okay? I looked at Duanmu and then smiled at Xiao Fengya. Mom, I know. I'm not in a good mood either. Maybe my tone was too harsh just now and I didn't consider your and Dad's feelings. I'm sorry, don't take it to heart. Xiao Fengya held my hand and gently patted my shoulder. We understand. Don't worry, we understand. You should go to Xinyao's room and rest for a while. I think this morning has affected your body again. Xiao Fengya turned around and looked at Xinyao. Yao Yao, help your sister-in-law back to your room and rest for a while. Xinyao stood there with her fists clenched. She angrily looked at Yuexa and said loudly, I've endured it for so long and I haven't said a single word. Yuexa, you bitch. Is it your second nature to seduce men? What's the point of sleeping with other people? How can you be so shameless? Hurry up and get out of here. The Duanmu family won't let a bad woman like you stay. Duanmu Tachio turned around and glared at Xinyao. Yao Yao, you can't speak like that. It was clearly your brother who was in the wrong first. You can't say that. Hurry up and take your sister-in-law back to rest. Your mother and I will take care of your brother. Chapter 140. Xinyao walked over and grabbed my arm. Sister-in-law, are you okay? I have some medicine in my room. I'll apply it to the wounds on your face. I guarantee you won't be able to see anything the next day, just like normal. Xinyao turned around and glared at Yuexin. What a slut! Then Xinyao pulled my arm and walked back to her bedroom. When we got back to the bedroom, Xinyao closed the door and stomped her feet in anger. She looked at me and said, Sister-in-law, how can you tolerate this? Yuexin, that slut is really out of control. She actually seduced my brother and slept with her. My brother used to be able to quibble, but now, he directly admitted it. It makes me so angry. I really don't want to stay here anymore. Sister-in-law, hurry up and get a divorce. Once you're done, I'll leave home with you. I want to live at Uncle Leng's house and become his daughter. Looking at Xinyao's angry expression, I smiled and said, Don't be my father's daughter. I've already annoyed him enough. If you come again, the two of us will probably annoy him to the point of disorientation. Sister-in-law, you're still in the mood to joke around. I'm really angry. Don't bully me anymore. Xinyao pouted and walked over to the dressing table. Rummaging through the drawers, she found a small box and said happily, Found it. This is the best. Sister-in-law, I'll apply it for you. Xinyao walked in front of me and began to treat my wound. She said angrily, Sister-in-law, I really don't understand how my brother changed so much. In the past, when I saw the two of you happily together, I was so envious. I also wanted to find a man who was especially good to me like you and my brother. But when I found one, my brother and sister-in-law are going to divorce. I never thought that my sister-in-law was bad, nor did I think that she did anything wrong, but my brother really changed. I don't like him anymore. I raised my head and looked at Xinyao. If I told you that everything that happened today was caused by me, would you hate me? Xinyao stopped what she was doing and looked at me. Sister-in-law, what do you mean by that? I held Xinyao's hand and said, I'll tell you the truth. I've already decided to divorce the Duanmu. But the Duanmu has already wavered. In order to make him stick to his original idea, I reached an agreement with Yuexin. As long as we can get a normal divorce, I won't mind if she seduces the Duanmu or does anything to him. Good heavens, sister-in-law. Why did you do that? Could it be that you really don't love the Duanmu anymore? Xinyao looked at me in disbelief. I looked at Xinyao and said, I love him. Just like Suri said, I might love him even more than the Duanmu Quebec. I'm afraid that I can't control myself. I'm afraid that the deeper I love him, the deeper he will hurt me. He doesn't love me anymore. He even threatened me that if I don't remarry him, he will make a move on the people around me, including you. He even dared to make a move on his own sister. What else can I do? I'm really scared. I'm not afraid of what he will do to me. I'm scared that he will hurt the people around me. Of course I know that what I'm doing is wrong, but divorce is the best ending. Xinyao looked at me with wide eyes. She couldn't believe it at all. She looked at me and said, "Sister-in-law, is that really the case? I really can't believe it. My brother has already become like this. I don't know what to do. But sister-in-law, is it really okay to let you ex-in seduce my brother so unscrupulously?" I pulled Xinyao's hand and said, "I know there's no other way. I don't hate your brother, I just feel that our fate has come to an end. We shouldn't be entangled with each other anymore. I also want to be together with the Duanmu K, but he doesn't want to be with me anymore. What can I do? Yu Xion's feelings for him are true, and she will definitely be good to the Duanmu Quebec. There's nothing to worry about. After a long time he will forget about me." Xinyao sighed and looked at me. "No matter what, I hope that this matter can be resolved peacefully in the end. I'm fine with it. The main thing is that I feel that you and my brother are both unwilling to divorce. It would be great if my brother could recover his memories. Then he would remember you and everything. Then he wouldn't complain about divorce anymore." I pulled Xinyao and said, "It doesn't matter. Let's just take one step at a time. Everything will be in the past. Today's weather is pretty good. How about we go shopping?" I reached for the mirror and looked at myself. Xinyao's makeup skills are really good. Now I can't even see any wounds. Let's go. Let's go shopping. You can accompany me to relax." Xinyao shook her head and looked at me. "All right, I really can't do anything about you. Let's go shopping at the Central Plaza. I heard that there are new products coming out. It just so happens that a few of my designs are going to be on the shelves. You can go take a look. If there's something you like, I'll bring it to you." I stroked Xinyao's hair and nodded with a smile. Xinyao and I tidied up a bit. Then we walked out of the bedroom and headed to the living room. We bumped into Duanmu Tachio and Xiao Fengya. Xiao Fengya took my hand and looked at my wounds. "It looks like your wounds are a bit better. Where are you and Yao Yao going?" I looked at Xiao Fengya and said, "Mom, the weather is pretty good today. I want to go shopping at the Central Plaza with Xinyao and buy some things we like." Xiao Fengya turned her head and glanced at Duanmu Lixiong, then looked at me as she took out a bank card from her handbag and stuffed it into my hand. I didn't understand what she meant, so I looked at her and asked, "Mom? What's the meaning of this?" Xiao Fengya patted my hand and said, "Aren't you going shopping? You don't usually like to spend money. Since you're in the mood to go shopping today, Mom and Dad prepared this for you. Spend as much as you want. Buy whatever you want. There's definitely enough money inside." I turned to Xiao Fengya and said, "Mom, there's no need. I brought money. You and Dad can keep it." Before Xiao Fengya could say anything, Xinyao walked up to us and snatched the bank card. She walked towards the door and said, "Sister-in-law, come quickly. Mom told you to take it, so take it. If you don't take it, I'll spend it for you." I helplessly looked at Xiao Fengya and smiled. "Mom, I really don't know what to do with Xinyao. You and Dad, don't be angry. I'll deal with her later." Xiao Fengya smiled and looked at me. "She's just like a child. Your dad and I are used to it. Hurry up and go." I said goodbye to her and Duanmu Tachio and ran after Xinyao. Chapter 141. Xinyao and I set foot on the road to go shopping. Xinyao drove very fast, and before long, we arrived at the Central Plaza. The Central Plaza was the shopping mall with the most complete collection of clothing brands in a city, including the international and domestic brands. All of them were gathered here. On the second floor of the Central Plaza, there was a shop in the middle. It was the shop of the international brand that had signed a contract with Xinyao. And the clothes that Xinyao had designed for this season just happened to be selling very well in this shop. After arriving at the Central Plaza, Xinyao and I directly rushed there. As soon as Xinyao and I entered the shop, an enthusiastic salesperson greeted us. She smiled at us and said, "Welcome. How can I help you?" Xinyao didn't turn around to look at her. "Go and find your manager," she said loudly. Xinyao's arrogant tone stunned the salesperson and me. I pulled Xinyao and said in a low voice, "Why are you so stiff? They're asking you to work hard to earn money. Don't be so angry." Xinyao shook her head and whispered in my ear, "It's okay, sister-in-law. I know their manager. I need to talk to him about something. Besides, I've just started. If they can't stand my temper, how can they deal with the customers? I also have shares in this brand, so I'm a small shareholder. I can't just let anyone be qualified to be a salesperson here. Sister-in-law, don't worry." She winked at me. I recognized Xinyao's marketing skills. After listening to her explanation, I didn't ask any more questions. The salesperson was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled and handed us 2 glasses of water. She looked at us and said politely, "I'm sorry, ladies. I didn't treat you well just now. Please don't mind. Please have a seat. I'm going to find the manager. Please wait for a moment." Then the salesperson left. Xinyao and I sat on the sofa in the shop and waited. There were a lot of customers coming in and out of the shop. Xinyao smiled when she saw the number of customers and the amount of consumption. It seemed she was very satisfied with her design. After waiting for about 5 minutes, a well-dressed man walked in front of us. He looked at us with a smile and said, "I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. I was just receiving a group of guests and was a little late. My apologies." Xinyao put the cup on the coffee table, then looked up at the man and said, "Yo, I haven't been here for a while, and you're already so forgetful. You even forgot about me, a designer. It seems you're really busy." Xinyao was still as arrogant as ever. The man was stunned at first, and then he seemed to remember something. He looked at Xinyao with a smile and said, "Ah, I remember now. So it's Miss Duanmu. What brings you here today? I'm sorry I didn't treat you well." He turned to the salesperson and said, "Why didn't you tell me it was Miss Duanmu? If you had, I would have rushed over immediately." The salesperson looked like she wanted to say something, but then stopped. It was obvious she didn't know what was going on. Xinyao looked at the salesperson, then turned to the manager and said, "That's enough. You don't have to say anything. I'm looking for you for business." Xinyao stood up and looked around. Then she asked, "What about this season's new products? Where are they? Bring them all to me. My sister-in-law wants to pick." Okay. I'll go right away." Then the manager turned and left with the salesperson. Xinyao sat down and picked up the cup of water. I looked at Xinyao and said, "You're too strict. I prefer when you're with me. You're gentle and cute. I'm not used to your strict attitude." Xinyao pouted at me and said, "Sister-in-law, don't laugh at me. I treat my family members very gently, and I treat my friends very seriously. But when it comes to my colleagues and work, I must be strict. I don't believe that any of my colleagues will do their best. If they don't do their best, then the one who loses the most will be me. I don't want the clothes that I design to be pointed at and criticized by the buyers who come to patronize me." "Then I understand. You want to save face." I immediately guessed Xinyao thoughts. Xinyao shook her head vigorously, her face flushed red as she said, "That's not it, sister-in-law. I'm telling you the truth. I've gone to a shop in another city several times, pretending to be a buyer. I've really found a lot of problems. Some are problems with the attitude of the shop assistants, some are problems with the inventory, and it's all a mess. There are too many problems. I've summed them all up and dealt with them. This can be considered a private visit. That's a sort of private investigation. Don't you think you're doing something superfluous? You're tiring yourself out. You have to do everything yourself. Don't you think you're tired?" I stroked Xinyao hair and looked at her worriedly. Xinyao winked at me and smiled happily. It seemed that in her eyes, there was no room for carelessness when it came to work. "What the hell are you guys doing?" While Xinyao and I were chatting enthusiastically, we heard a woman's shout from behind us. Xinyao and I put down the glass of water and turned around to take a look. It just so happened that we saw a 40-year-old woman throwing a piece of clothing from the shop to the ground and ruthlessly stomping on it a few times with her feet. I glanced at Xianyao. She was tightly gripping her glass. It was clear that she was very angry. The woman was still shouting and yelling, which attracted a lot of onlookers. The store manager also rushed over to understand the situation. Xianyao and I were standing not too far away. We could see that the woman's attitude was very bad. She kept yelling at the store manager and didn't stop stomping on the clothing. From time to time, she would stomp on it a few more times. Seeing that the woman wasn't done, Xianyao couldn't take it anymore. She picked up her wine glass and threw it in the woman's direction. It heavily smashed next to the woman's feet. The woman didn't have time to dodge and was startled. She looked at us and shouted, "Who? Get out here for this old lady. Who gave you face? You dare to throw something at me?" Xianyao sneered and walked towards her. Xianyao was 10 centimeters taller than the woman. In terms of momentum, she had already suppressed the woman. Xianyao walked in front of the woman and looked her up and down. She shook her head and crossed her arms. "I threw it. What are you going to do about it?" Xianyao had already angered the woman. The woman pointed at Xianyao and said, "You. What do you want to do? I'm telling you, don't be so shameless. Be careful or I won't be polite to you. Don't think that I can't beat you just because you're taller than me." Chapter 142. Xianyao sneered and looked at the clothes that were still on the ground. She bent down and picked it up. She patted the clothes and looked at the woman and said, "I don't want to do anything. You are disturbing this young Mrs. ears by shouting and yelling." The woman seemed to understand after hearing Xianyao's words. She looked at Xianyao and said, "I thought it was something else. So it's this. Since you don't want to listen, you can plug your ears." The woman glared at Xianyao. Xianyao looked at the woman and said, "That doesn't matter. But you, why did you step on such a beautiful dress? Has nothing to do with you. Who do you think you are? You're just a little girl. You haven't even grown out your hair yet. Since when did you have the right to yell at me? Get the hell back home." The woman glared fiercely at Xianyao. I knew the situation wasn't good, so I secretly told Suri about it through WeChat. Suri replied that he would be there soon. Only then did I calm down a bit. The store manager walked over to Xianyao and whispered into Xianyao's ear, "Miss Duanmu, let me take care of this. It won't be good if she gets angry and hurts you." Xianyao shook her head and looked at the woman. "No need. I won't spoil someone who doesn't respect my design. You go and clear the crowd of onlookers." The manager nodded and dismissed the crowd of onlookers. Xianyao looked up at the woman and said, "It doesn't matter who I am. Don't you want to solve the problem now? Let's solve it one by one. First, tell me why you stepped on this dress." Xianyao held the dress in front of the woman. The woman was startled and took 2 steps back. The woman looked at Xianyao and pointed to a nearby salesperson. "I like this dress." This woman said she didn't have a size I could wear. I told her to bring me the largest size, but she still said I couldn't wear it. She didn't bring it to me, so how did she know I couldn't wear it? Wasn't he mocking me? How can I bear it? Xianyao glanced at the waiter. The waiter lowered his head in embarrassment. It seemed that this woman was telling the truth. Xianyao turned to look at the woman and said, "You can try another one. This brand has a lot of loose-fitting designs. You can wear them all with your figure. But I only like this one." The woman's attitude was very firm. She looked at Xianyao and said, "I never care about the price when I look at things. I only care about the style. I only like this one." Xianyao turned her head to look at the waiter and said, "Is this the largest size in my hand?" The attendant nodded. Xianyao continued, "Go and find me a pair of scissors and a set of needles and thread. Go now." I quickly ran to Xianyao's side. I glanced at the woman, then back at Xianyao. "Little Xianyao, you're not thinking of changing your clothes right here, are you?" Hearing my question, the woman also looked at Xinyao. What? You want to change it? I didn't say I wanted this dress. You guys better watch carefully. She wants to change it herself. If you ruin it, I won't be responsible for paying for it. The waiter handed over a pair of scissors and a needle and thread. Xinyao took the clothes to the tea table and began to change them. The woman seemed worried and wanted to go over to take a look, but was stopped by me. I said to her, "It's best if you don't disturb Xinyao's work. She doesn't like to be disturbed when she's working. If there's anything wrong with the changes, you'll have to bear the responsibility." Hearing me say that, the woman was scared and stood to the side, watching from a distance. While Xinyao was busy, Suri ran in through the door. I looked up and saw him. He walked over to me. Because of this, a lot of people had gathered at the door. Everyone was looking at Xinyao, waiting to see how Xinyao would change the dress. Suri looked at the scene. He walked over to me and whispered, "Young lady, I've heard everything from you. What's the situation now? What's Xinyao doing?" "Shoo," I whispered. "Xinyao is focused on her work. You'll understand in a moment." Suri covered his mouth and nodded. All of our eyes were on Xinyao, who was focused on her work. Looking at Xinyao's figure, Suri whispered in my ear, "This is the first time I've seen Xinyao work so hard. She's so beautiful. I'm deeply attracted to her." I whispered to Suri, "Me too. Xinyao is the most beautiful when she's working. I like her like this too." While the two of us were staring at her, Xinyao stopped her work. She raised the dress and smiled. "I'm done." Suri and I hurried to her side. I looked at the dress Xinyao had changed and couldn't help but admit that her craftsmanship was excellent. The overall style of the dress wasn't changed much. Instead, she added a lot of fancy designs. Xinyao held the dress and smiled at Suri and me. Then, she walked to the woman and handed her the dress. "Try it on." The woman looked at Xinyao in shock. She took the dress, but didn't enter the fitting room. Xinyao looked at her and said, "Go. I'm sure you'll be satisfied." The woman nodded and entered the fitting room with the dress. I walked to Xinyao's side and rubbed her hair. "Girl, you must be tired. Why did you think of changing clothes?" "I just happened to have nothing to do. Besides, the waiter was right. She really can't fit into that dress. Customers are too stubborn, so it's natural for the waiter to have a hard time dealing with them. For people like her, it's necessary to fix them." Xinyao sighed. She happened to see Suri and gave Suri a naughty wink. After a while, the woman walked out of the fitting room. The scene was filled with sighs of admiration. I turned around and saw that Xinyao had changed the dress that the woman couldn't fit into a loose-fitting dress. Not only did she fit, but she also looked very slim. Some of the onlookers couldn't help but take out their phones to take pictures. Xinyao turned her head and looked at the woman. She was very satisfied. She walked in front of the woman and smiled. "How is it? Do you like it?" The woman looked at herself in the mirror and said, "It's too beautiful. It's really too beautiful. It's just as beautiful as the original. Well, it's even more beautiful than the original. I must buy this one. I'll buy it." It seemed she was very satisfied. Xinyao looked at her and said, "It just fell on the floor, so it's dirty. You should take it off and give it back to me. If you really like it, I'll recommend that the store release this dress in the next season." Chapter 143. No, no, no. I want this one. How much is it? I'll buy it." When the woman heard that Xinyao wanted to take back the dress, she quickly took 2 steps back and refused. Xinyao smiled and looked at her. "Now that you want this dress so much, do you still think it's not good?" Hearing Xinyao's question, the woman felt embarrassed instead. She stood at the side and lowered her head while tightly tugging at the corner of her clothes. Xinyao looked at her and said, "How about this? I won't make things difficult for you. I'll give you this dress." Seeing that Xinyao was going to give her the dress, The woman excitedly jumped up and shouted. Really? That's great. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for my bad attitude just now. I apologize. Xinyao nodded, looked at her and said, Very good, I accept this apology. I won't hide it from you, I'm the chief designer of this brand, and it's also very coincidental. The style you've taken a fancy to was designed by me. Although I brought my family here to purchase, but I heard that the customer was dissatisfied with this dress. I still have to deal with it. When the woman heard that Xinyao was a designer, she was so scared that she didn't dare to speak. At this time, Suri understood the reason. He walked over to Xinyao and looked at the woman. You probably don't know, but any dress designed by Xinyao can be sold at an international auction house. Your disrespect to the dress today is disrespect to Xinyao, but our Xinyao kindly took care of it for you. Don't push your luck. When the woman heard Suri's words, she was so scared that her whole body was trembling. Xinyao pulled Suri's hand and looked at the woman. Okay, don't be afraid. You can take this dress. Our store will be open for business. Thank you. The woman was stunned for a moment. Then she ran out of the store with her purse. After watching the woman leave, I let out a long sigh. I said to Xinyao, Silly girl, how could you be so bold as to expose your identity? What if someone sets their eyes on us? We didn't bring any bodyguards with us this time. How am I going to explain this to mom and dad? You little fool. Xinyao glanced at Suri, threw herself into his arms and said softly, What are you afraid of? I still have Suri Gij. Having Gij Suri to protect me is enough. Gij Suri treats me the best. He won't let me get hurt, right? Xinyao raised her head and kissed Suri. Suri's face turned red. He leaned close to Xinyao's ear and said softly, What are you doing? There are so many people here, it's not good to see. Suri's eyes wandered. He was still a young and inexperienced child. I looked at the two of them loving each other and felt very happy. I smiled at them and said, You too, can't you consider the feelings of a soon-to-be single person? Why do you have to show off your love in front of me and let me see it? Xinyao and Suri let go of each other's hands and looked at me with an embarrassed smile. The three of us went to Xinyao's shop and chose 2 sets of clothes. They were both chosen by Xinyao for me, and they were indeed very beautiful. After walking through the shop, we decided to look at the shoes. As we walked, I felt like someone was following us, but I couldn't be sure. Xinyao probably didn't notice. As we walked, she talked the whole way. I turned to Suri and said softly, Suri, do you feel like something's not right? Suri didn't look at me. He lowered his voice and said, Big miss, you also felt it. I can't be sure who it is yet. Don't say anything. Pretend that you and Xinyao go into the same shop. I'll find an opportunity to go around and check it out. Coincidentally, we passed by a shop. I pointed at a pair of shoes and said to Xinyao, this pair of shoes is very beautiful. Let's go take a look. I took Xinyao's arm and walked into the shop. Indeed, after entering the shop, I didn't feel like someone was following us. I pretended to look at the goods, but my mind was still outside the door. I didn't know if Suri had found the people who were following us. They probably hadn't left yet and were probably waiting for us nearby. Xinyao and I were almost done with our shopping. She went to the counter to pay the bill. At this time, Suri walked in through the door. He walked to my side and said softly, I checked. There are indeed 3 people in the shop across the street. We should be careful. I looked at Suri and said, Let's wait for Xinyao to finish shopping and then we'll leave. Suri nodded. He walked to Xinyao's side and whispered a few words in her ear. Xinyao nodded and quickly paid the bill. The 3 of us left. As soon as we turned and walked out of the shop, the 3 people who had been following us came up to us. I saw that they were 3 men. Suri saw them walk over and immediately blocked Xinyao and me behind him. He looked at them and said, What do you want? One of the men pointed at Xinyao and said, Someone paid money to kill Big Miss Duanmu. We're just following orders. We don't care about anyone else. However, if you dare to meddle in other people's business, We don't mind taking a few more lives. I glared at them and said, This is a society governed by law. How can we let you commit murder in public? Each of the 3 men drew a knife from his bosom and said, Cut the crap. The 3 of them rushed towards us. Suri saw that the situation wasn't right, so he rushed over and tangled with the 3 of them. Since all 3 of them had weapons in their hands, I was afraid that they would hurt us. I pulled Xinyao and hid in a corner. After all, their target was Xinyao. I had to protect Xinyao first. I looked at Suri. It was already very difficult for him to fight against 3 people, but Suri didn't give them a chance to get close to us. It was obvious that he was doing his best to protect us. Suri's strength was running out, but I didn't know what to do. There were many people surrounding us, but no one was willing to help him. Big brother Suri! Xinyao shouted as she looked at Suri. I turned around and saw that Suri's arm had been cut by a knife. Blood was flowing out. I covered my mouth and looked at Suri, worried. At this moment, another knife cut Suri's arm. Suri! I was really worried about Suri, but I was also afraid that Xinyao would be in danger if she was alone. While I didn't know what to do, I heard Suri's shout. He shouted in our direction, Big miss! Xinyao, be careful. I came back to my senses and saw that Suri had many wounds on his body. Chapter 144. He was lying on the ground. Although he was tightly hugging one person, the other 2 people were still rushing towards us. I couldn't care less about that. I held Xinyao tightly in my arms. No matter what, I couldn't let her get hurt. I had already made all the preparations, prepared for anything bad. I hugged Xinyao tightly and closed my eyes. Just as I felt the air condense, I didn't get hurt like I expected. I slowly opened my eyes and saw a figure standing in front of me. The 2 people who were rushing towards us had already fallen to the ground. The figure looked familiar but also unfamiliar. I patted Xinyao's shoulder and said, It's okay. It's okay now. Xinyao sat up in my arms and turned to look at Suri, who was still on the ground. She ran over and hugged him, crying loudly. Suri Gij, how are you? Are you okay? Suri Gij, I'm sorry. It's all because of me that you got so many injuries. I'll take you to the hospital now. Xinyao struggled to support Suri and took him out of the shopping mall. I also stood up and looked at the man standing in front of me. Thank you for helping me. Thank you very much, I said softly. The man turned around and glanced at me. I took 2 steps back in surprise. It was none other than Duanmu, Quebec. He was carrying a lot of shopping bags in his hands. I glanced at them and saw that they were all women's brands. Although I was a little surprised compared to this, I was more confused about why he would appear in this place. Duanmu K turned his head and looked at the 2 people who were struggling to get up from the ground. Before they could get up, Duanmu K kicked them back to the ground. Duanmu K looked at them fiercely and said, Speak! Who the hell sent you here? The 2 of them didn't open their mouths and continued to lie on the ground. Their bodies were filthy. The other person saw the opportunity and prepared to run away. Duanmu K casually took out a shopping bag and threw it directly at him. It directly hit him on the head, and that person immediately fell to the ground. Ah, my dear, Duanmu. Gij, how could you throw my dear? I spent a lot of effort to buy it. Fortunately, it didn't break. I heard a familiar voice. A girl walked out of the crowd. It was none other than Uxin. Uxin walked in front of the person who had fallen to the ground. She picked up the shopping bag and patted the dust off it. She pouted at Duanmu K, looking unhappy. It turned out that the 2 of them were also here to shop. Uxin hugged the shopping bag and walked in front of me. She held Duanmu K's arm and leaned on his shoulder. She looked at me and said, What a coincidence you're here too. She looked at the shopping bag next to me and said, Looks like you bought a lot. I looked at Uxin and didn't say anything. I smiled at them and said, Thank you. Thank you for helping us out. I'm really grateful. I won't disturb you anymore. Have to go check on Xinyao and Suri. I bent down to pick up the shopping bags scattered on the ground and gestured to them. Just as I was about to turn around and leave, I was unexpectedly stopped by Duanmu Quebec. He stood in front of me and looked at me with a very serious expression. I didn't understand what he wanted to do, but I kept feeling that he had something to say, but he didn't open his mouth. I didn't ask too much, so I just waited to see what he wanted to do. Duanmu K turns his head to look at those men and says, "I'll give you guys one last chance. Who exactly arranged for you guys to assassinate Duanmu Xinyao? If you dare to speak a single lie, I'll immediately deal with you." Duanmu K's words were threatening. The three men looked at each other. One of the men looked at Duanmu K and said, "Company B sent us here. They said that Duanmu Xinyao's designs have completely hindered the development of Company B's clothing brand in a city. They want us to get rid of this thorn in their side. That way, Company B's clothing brand will become a hot-selling brand in a city." "You're really ruthless. I've already called the police, so you don't have to think about running away. Before the police arrive, you won't be able to walk out of this mall. I've already sent people to seal this mall. Only when you're taken away by the police will it return to normal. Fortunately, it's not a big deal. Just treat those few kicks as a lesson to you. Not everyone can touch my Duanmu K's sister." Duanmu K stood in front of them and looked at them arrogantly as he spoke. I sneered and looked at Duanmu Quebec. "What do you mean it's not a big deal? Suri is injured and has been sent to the hospital. Isn't that a big deal?" Duanmu K turned and glared at me. "Cold glaze, I'm trying to help you. You'd better think carefully before you speak. Otherwise, don't blame me for not caring about this matter." I looked at Duanmu Quebec. His heart had become abnormally cold. I looked at him and said, "You've completely disappointed me. Thank you for saving us. I really do thank you from the bottom of my heart. However, I can't tolerate you ignoring the pain that Suri has caused himself by risking his life to protect us." While the two of us were arguing, the surrounding crowd didn't understand why we were doing this. I heard voices from the crowd. One person said, "What's going on? Why can't I understand? Isn't that man Duanmu's eldest son, young Master K? Isn't that woman Duanmu K's wife and the eldest daughter of Red Minghui? Aren't they husband and wife? Why does their conversation sound so official? That's right. I heard that the two of them are getting a divorce. Is that woman next to them a mistress? No way. Then this is too shocking. The mistress and the wife have a direct confrontation. Hurry up and take a photo." Listening to the noisy discussion around us, I felt very uncomfortable. I felt like a clown being ridiculed here. I looked up at Duanmu K and smiled. "Let's not talk about this anymore. If you have something to say, let's talk at home. It's not convenient to talk here." I took the things and walked past Duanmu Quebec. I felt very uncomfortable. I didn't know when it started. The two of us used to be so in love, but now, whenever we saw each other, we would argue and even fight. My heart was in pain, and I didn't know how to face it. As soon as I took 2 steps, Duanmu K grabbed my arm. Before I could react, Duanmu K had already pressed me against the wall. He looked at me and reached out to hold my chin. His face moved closer, and in front of everyone, he kissed me deeply on the lips. Chapter 145. I used all my strength to push Duanmu K away, but he held me tightly in his arms and I couldn't move. After a while, Duanmu K raised his head and opened his eyes to look at me. He touched my face and I couldn't read his eyes. However, I was sure that his sudden kiss wasn't because he loved me. The onlookers were shocked by our sudden actions. There was a lot of boos and I could hear them talking. "Oh my God! That's so romantic. Kabadin. Wow, that's so exciting. Seems that the rumors are fake. Who said that they were going to divorce? It's like they're the same person. It seems that rumors can't be trusted. Then why did they quarrel just now? I think Miss Lung didn't give young Master Duanmu a way out. You can't think like that. It's normal for young couples to quarrel. I think the two of them are very loving. Listening to the onlookers' discussion, I raised my head to look at Duanmu Quebec. He was able to resolve the onlookers' discussion. It seemed that he was very smart. I turned my head to look at Yuexin. Her expression was very ugly. Duanmu K's sudden actions probably made her very angry. Calm down. I raised my head to look at Duanmu K and said, "Okay, I should go. You and Yuexin can continue shopping. I won't disturb you." I glanced at Duanmu K and turned to leave. However, Duanmu K grabbed my arm. He pulled hard and I fell into his arms. Duanmu K hugged me. The onlookers sighed again. I was a little impatient. I looked at Duanmu K and said, "How long do you want to act? Is it fun to let me be played like a monkey in front of others? Let go of me." Duanmu K turned around and hugged my shoulder. He turned to look at UX and said, "I'll take the things back for you. You go home first." His cold words made me unable to understand Duanmu K's true thoughts. Yuexin was so angry that her face turned red. She stood behind Duanmu K and clenched her fists. She looked at Duanmu K and tried to control her emotions. You. I could feel that Yuexin wanted to bite me to death. Duanmu K waved at Yuexin. He put his arm around my shoulder and walked out of the crowd. I glanced at the onlookers out of the corner of my eye. They hadn't dispersed yet. They just stood there and watched us. I shook my head helplessly and turned to look at Duanmu K, who was standing next to me. His eyes were fixed in front of him, looking at Duanmu K's side profile. He was still as handsome as ever, but the feeling between us had changed. Just then, Duanmu K suddenly turned around. He saw that I was staring at him in a daze. He asked, "What are you looking at?" Duanmu K didn't let go of his arm around my shoulder. Instead, he felt that it was natural. Walking with him like this, I suddenly remembered the good days I had with Duanmu Quebec. I followed Duanmu K to the parking lot and walked to the front of his car. Duanmu K pulled me to the front passenger seat and opened the door. I couldn't help but say no before he stuffed me into the car and sat in the driver's seat. He turned to look at me, who was carrying a bunch of things. He frowned and reached out to throw all the shopping bags in my arms into the back seat. I stared at him, not daring to open my mouth. Duanmu K turned to look at me. I didn't dare to look at him while he looked at me. The two of us stood there awkwardly for a while. Finally, Duanmu K said, "Next time, no matter if you go out alone or with Xinyao, bring a few bodyguards with you. With different identities, the people who want to assassinate you will be different. This time it could be Xinyao. Next time it could be you." I looked at Duanmu K and nodded meaningfully. "I understand. Thank you." Duanmu K looked at me, and the air froze again. Duanmu K looked at me. He suddenly moved closer to me and put the chair down. I lay down on top of him. His face was only a few centimeters away from mine. I blushed instantly. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't dare to look at him. My eyes kept wandering. Duanmu K reached out and lifted my chin. He looked at me and said, "Don't move." Hearing him say that, I actually didn't move. I looked at Duanmu K and said, "What are you doing? We're in the parking lot. Hurry up and get up." Duanmu K sneered and lowered his head to kiss my lips. I widened my eyes and pushed Duanmu K's shoulders with all my might, but I couldn't push him away at all. Duanmu K kissed my lips and his hand reached into my shirt, slowly moving upwards. I grabbed his hand tightly, but I couldn't fight against his strength. My eyes were filled with tears as Duanmu K reached for my collar and unbuttoned my shirt. I grew more and more afraid. Helpless, I bit Duanmu K's lips with all my might. "Ah!" He stopped what he was doing and leaned beside me to wipe the corner of his mouth as he said softly, "You're really ruthless." I covered my chest with both hands and turned my head away from him. Duanmu-ke reached out his hand to touch my exposed stomach. I quickly grabbed his hand and looked at him. "Let go of me," I said. Duanmu-ke was stunned for a moment. Then he pulled his hand away from my body. He looked at me and said, "Are you that scared of what I'll do to you?" I tried to cover my chest and turned away. "It's not that I'm scared, it's that I don't want to." I touched my belly gently. I didn't know if I had scared the baby inside. Suddenly, I felt as if Duanmu-ke was lying next to me. He said softly, "Don't be scared. I said I won't touch you. I just want to lean on you for a while." Duanmu-ke put his arm around me. I didn't resist. I could feel Duanmu-ke leaning on my shoulder. He just hugged me gently. It was very quiet. Gradually, my eyelids became heavier and heavier. Unknowingly, I fell asleep. This sleep was very deep. Perhaps it was because my body was still very weak and I had been frightened. It wasn't easy for me to relax my mind, so I naturally fell asleep. I didn't know how long I slept. When I woke up, I was lying on a bed. However, it wasn't Duanmu-ke's bedroom, nor was it my own bedroom. Looking at the decoration style, it was very similar to Duanmu-ke's villa in the suburbs. I got up from the bed. My messy clothes were already put on. Just as I was thinking about how I got here, how I was lying on the bed, and who helped me put on my clothes, I heard Duanmu-ke's voice from outside the door. Chapter 146. I listened carefully. He seemed to be on the phone. I heard him say, "I know she's with me. She's not going back today, she's staying in the villa. Don't worry, I won't do anything to her. Don't doubt me. Don't forget to tell Mom and Dad." "Alright, how's Su-rue's health now?" "It's good that he's fine. Don't worry. He's been stitched up. He'll be fine after resting for a while. Alright, let's talk later. I'm going to check on her. Call me if you need anything." I sat on the bed. Duanmu-ke pushed the door open and walked in. When he saw that I was awake, he was surprised. Then he said, "You're awake. I saw that you were asleep, and since you were close by, I brought you here. I already talked to Xinyao on the phone. I asked her to tell Mom and Dad that we won't be going back today. You can stay here without worry." I lowered my head and looked at my clothes. Then I looked at Duanmu-ke. "Oh, I know. I heard you talking on the phone. Did you put these clothes on me?" Duanmu-ke poured me a glass of water and placed it in front of me. He touched my forehead and said, "Yeah, it was me. Luckily you don't have a fever. I didn't bring any clothes when I went out. I was afraid that you'd catch a cold when you fell asleep." I took Duanmu-ke's glass of water. I looked at him and said, "Thank you." Duanmu-ke watched me drink the water. He smiled and said, "You must be hungry. I made some food. Do you want to eat here or at the restaurant?" I looked at Duanmu-ke in disbelief. "You know how to cook?" Duanmu-ke looked at me and said, "I know how to cook, but I rarely cook. It's not convenient to order takeout, and I don't trust anyone to cook for me. That's why I bought some ingredients and cooked. I don't know if it's to your liking. I heard from Xinyao that your cooking is really good, and that you're a first-class chef. I feel a lot of pressure. If it's not good, please don't mind." I looked at Duanmu-ke. I didn't understand why he was doing this. I looked at him and asked, "Why are you so good to me? Didn't you want to torture me to death? Why are you so good to me now? What do you mean?" Duanmu-ke stood up. He looked at me and said, "You are a woman full of mysteries. I'm very interested in you. Before I understand you completely, I don't want to let you go so easily." He wasn't telling the truth. His expression was very calm, but it was full of flaws. "You don't mean what you say." I looked at Duanmu-ke, signaling for him to speak his mind. Duanmu-ke thought for a moment and sat down next to me. He held my face and kissed my forehead gently. He looked at me and said, "I think I'm in love with you." I didn't know why, but when I heard Duanmu-ke's words, my heart ached. He already said that he loved me, so why was my heart still aching? Shouldn't this be the result I wanted? Why am I still in so much pain? My tears flowed out uncontrollably. Dwanmu-K saw that I was crying, so he reached out and held me in his arms. Dwanmu-K stroked my hair gently. He said, "Why are you crying? Did I make you unhappy?" Dwanmu-K paused for a moment, then he continued, "I understand. I know that I went too far in the past. Can you forgive me? I want to pursue you officially. Even if we are divorced, I want to pursue you again." I suddenly thought of Han Hao. I thought of the scene when Han Hao proposed to me in the hospital. I suddenly sobered up. I pushed Dwanmu-K away. He sat opposite me with a blank face. I shook my head and said, "No, Dwanmu-K. Stay away from me. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Hurry up and leave me." My tears flowed out uncontrollably. Dwanmu-K sat in front of me without saying a word, but I could feel that he was starting to get angry. "Why? Is it because of Han Hao? You two are already together, right?" Dwanmu-K pressed his hands on my shoulders, and he questioned me fiercely. Before I could refute, my phone rang. It was similar to the scene from the other day. Could it be Han Hao again? It was too much of a coincidence. Before I could touch the phone on the bedside table, Dwanmu-K snatched it from me. He looked at the phone, and his expression became even more serious. It seemed that I was too harsh on him. He looked at me again and picked up the phone. I could clearly hear Han Hao's voice on the other end of the line. Dwanmu-K was about to snatch the phone when he pushed me down on the bed. His whole body on top of mine. My body was still weak, and no matter how hard I struggled, Dwanmu-K was still on top of me. He looked at me as he answered the call from Han Hao. "Han Hao, you're really persistent. It's only been a few days, and you're already seducing my woman. It seems that we've been brothers for so many years, and we're really going to break up," Dwanmu-K said fiercely into the phone. "Xiao-K, you're with Xiao-Li. Where are you right now? What are you doing to Xiao-Li? I'm telling you, don't hurt Xiao-Li. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you." Han Hao's voice came from the other end of the line, and I cried even harder. Dwanmu-K sneered. He looked at me and reached out to grab my clothes. "Hiss!" Dwanmu-K tore my clothes. I screamed. Han Hao didn't know what happened on the other end of the line, and only heard him yelling, "Dwanmu-K, what are you doing to Xiao-Li? Hurry up and let her go. You can't hurt her. Dwanmu-K, don't go too far. If you have the guts, tell me where you are and we'll deal with it alone. Don't hurt Xiao-Li." Hearing Han Hao's words, Dwanmu-K's smile became even more evil. His hand continued to tear my clothes. Although I tried my best to protect my chest, I was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered in front of him. Cried really hard. I guess that Han Hao heard my voice, and that's why he was so agitated. Dwanmu-K said into the phone, "Do you know? The more you care about my woman, the angrier I get, and the more I'll torture her. You heard her voice, right? Do you want to know what I'm doing to her?" My upper body was almost completely naked in front of Dwanmu-Quebec. I was still covering my chest, and Dwanmu-K's hand was unscrupulously touching my body. I was very uncomfortable, but I didn't dare to cry out. I was afraid that Han Hao would come, and that he would be hurt by Dwanmu-Quebec. Han Hao yelled from the other end of the line, "Dwanmu-K, let go of Xiao-Li, and I'll agree to whatever you want, okay?" "Really? You'll agree to whatever I want? You said it, don't regret it." Dwanmu-K stopped his movements and said into the phone. Chapter 147. Han Hao paused for a moment, then said, "I don't regret it. As long as you let Xiao-Li go, I'll agree to anything you ask of me." Dwanmu-K sneered. He looked at me, who was still under his body. He leaned forward and kissed me hard on the cheek. I dodged and pushed him away with all my might. Dwanmu-K looked at me and said, I didn't expect him to care about you that much. But what about you? Who do you care about? Is it me or him? Duanmu K's words caused me to freeze. I covered my chest with both hands and turned my head, not daring to look at Duanmu. Quebec. Tears were still flowing from the corners of my eyes. Han Hao seemed to understand something. He said through the phone, "Xiao Ke, I told you I'll listen to anything you say. Let Xiaoli go. What are you doing now?" Duanmu Ke looked at me and said into the phone, "Han Hao, I won't do anything to Xiaoli. Also, please don't call me again for 24 hours. Otherwise, the more you don't want anything to happen, the more I'll do something to her." Then Duanmu Ke was about to hang up. I heard the other side of the phone yell, "Wait, Xiao Ke. Wait, Xiao Ke. Don't hang up." Duanmu Ke asked doubtfully, "What else do you want?" Han Hao lowered his voice and said softly, "Can you let me talk to Xiaoli? Just for a moment." Duanmu Ke looked at me and sneered. He handed me the phone and said, "Here, Han Hao wants to talk to you." I turned my head and took the phone. My tears couldn't stop flowing. I took the phone and held back my tears. With a sobbing voice I said to Han Hao, "Han Hao, don't worry. I'm fine. Don't worry." Han Hao paused. I heard him say softly, "Xiaoli, don't cry. I might not be able to call you for a while. You have to be good and protect yourself. Xiao Ke already promised me that he won't do anything to you. If he does bully you, tell me. I'll fight him with my life." I nodded and said into the phone, "I know. I'll protect myself. You too." Before I could finish, Duanmu Ke snatched the phone from my hand and hung up impatiently. He looked at me and said, "If you want to show off your love, do it when we meet. Don't be all lovey-dovey in front of me. You're still lying on my bed. Don't you know that?" I looked at Duanmu Ke and didn't look at him anymore. He left my body. I quickly pulled the blanket over myself. My heart was tired and my head hurt. I listened to Duanmu Ke's footsteps. It seemed he had left the bedroom. I let out a sigh of relief. It was like a nightmare. There was sweetness and fear. I stopped crying and quietly lay on the bed. My shirt was torn, and I didn't know how to get out of bed. After a while I heard footsteps again. Duanmu Ke should be back. I turned my back to the door and didn't look at him. I didn't want to look at him. Duanmu Ke walked to the bedside and threw a piece of clothing on the bed. He looked at me and said, "Get up and eat something. I found you some of my clothes. Put them on first." I grabbed the clothes and took off the pieces that were hanging on my body. After changing, I sat up. Duanmu Ke carried a small table and placed it in front of me. Then he placed the dishes on the table. Although the plates weren't big, each dish was exquisite. It seemed Duanmu Ke's cooking wasn't bad. He handed me a pair of chopsticks and said, "Eat. I don't know if it suits your appetite. If it doesn't, I'll find someone to make it for you." I lowered my head and ate. Duanmu Ke kept putting food into my bowl. I could feel his eyes on me, but I kept my head down and didn't dare to look at him. I carefully tasted Duanmu Ke's food. Tasted good. Although I didn't have a big appetite, I felt like I had eaten a lot. When I was almost done, I put the chopsticks on the table and leaned against the headboard to look out the window. It was almost dusk, and the setting sun shone on the trees in the courtyard. The scenery was beautiful. Duanmu Ke saw that I had finished eating, so he moved the small table downstairs. I could vaguely hear the noise downstairs. Thinking about how a young master like Duanmu Ke would never do such crude household chores, it was hard to imagine what kind of scene it would be. Looking at the scenery outside the window, I wanted to go out for a walk. I lifted the blanket and got off the bed. I grabbed one of his jackets and put it on. When I walked out of the bedroom and reached the staircase, I saw Duanmu Ke coming upstairs with a plate of fruit. We looked at each other. He was stunned at first, then asked softly, "What do you want to do?" I looked at him and answered, "I want to take a walk in the courtyard. I've been lying down for a long time. I want to take a walk." Duanmu Ke looked at me and held out his hand. "Let's go. I'll go with you." I looked at Duanmukei's outstretched hand. At first I hesitated, but in the end I reached out and put my hand on his. Duanmukei held my hand, and I slowly walked towards him. This feeling was just like when he had married me. Duanmukei held the plate of fruit in one hand and pulled me with the other. He was afraid that I would lose my balance and fall. The two of us walked out of the room and into the front yard. The afterglow of the setting sun had yet to disperse, and the fragrance of the flowers in the yard wafted over. It was the same scene as when I had been here before. There was a swing in the corner of the yard, which I had requested to be designed. I walked over. Although I had built it, I hadn't played here for a long time. Duanmukei could tell what I was thinking. He put the plate of fruit on the stone table and looked at me. "Do you want to play?" I turned to look at Duanmukei. I thought for a moment, then nodded. Duanmukei held my hand and helped me onto the swing. I tightly held onto the hemp rope on both sides of the swing. Duanmukei gently pushed my back and I swung. Although the swing was small, I was very happy. It was as if I had returned to the time when I was young. I couldn't help but smile, and I was very happy. Duanmukei saw me smile, and his face broke into a smile as well. It was a smile that I hadn't seen in a long time. It was a smile that was different from his usual cold and evil smile. It was a smile that came from the bottom of his heart. I turned to look at Duanmukei, and I felt a little shy. "Thank you," I whispered. Duanmukei stopped what he was doing. He reached out and hugged me from behind. "It's a very strange feeling. I don't know why, but I really want to see you smile. Your smile is more beautiful than the flowers in this yard. But every time you show me an expression of fear, disappointment, and helplessness." You're tuning in to the Whispers of Romance YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.